Good morning, it's 7 o'clock. Welcome to Mornings with Ridge and Frost.
It's Sophie and Will, good morning from both of us. Lots to update you on today.
Chaos in Belfast with houses and cars set on fire and residents forced to flee after a protest sparked by Monday's knife attack.
As more details emerge, praise for this man who rushed towards the scene to stop the attack.
The US and Iran exchanged strikes after an American Apache helicopter was downed over the Strait of Hormuz.
Plus, as World Cup fever builds, we're going to be asking Sir Harry Redknapp for all his predictions.
And we'll try to find out why Africa's top referee was denied entry to the US by asking the White House's World Cup official.
Good morning. Welcome to the programme. People in parts of Belfast have been forced to flee their homes after a night of chaos in Northern Ireland's capital.
Throughout the evening, cars and houses were set on fire by groups of masked men and protesters threw stones at police.
So, look, it was a pretty frightening few hours for people in Belfast, and it was prompted by a knife attack in the city on Monday. A 30-year-old Sudanese man has now been charged with attempted murder and will appear in court later today. And the victim, who is a man in his 40s, remains in hospital with serious injuries.
The protests took place across the city with police officers dealing with what they called sporadic pockets of disorder. Here, a group of masked men can be seen throwing bins that have been set on fire at a bus. Northern Ireland's public transport operator suspended bus and rail services operating in and out of Belfast. Police
also came under attack as they tried to squash the disorder. Several roads were blocked by groups of protesters.
And for residents, the unrest turned into immediate danger as a number of houses were set on fire. Black smoke could be seen billowing above the city as firefighters worked to put out the flames. Northern Ireland's Fire and Rescue Service say they attended 62 incidents last night, the majority of which were in Greater Belfast.
We've got some political response as well, I should expect. Northern Ireland's First Minister, Michelle O'Neill, criticised the damage being caused by the protests. On social media, she said groups of masked men burning families out of their homes is nothing less than disgusting cowardice. This has nothing to do with community. This is outright thuggery. The attack in North Belfast was heinous and wrong, but there are dangerous attempts to exploit that, to target and attack innocent people who are simply trying to live, work and raise their families here.
Let's bring in Conor Gillis, who's in Belfast for us this morning. Conor, firstly, just bring us up to speed. Well, I was going to say, on the fallout. We can see it.
Yeah, you certainly can. Good morning, Wilf. Good morning, Sophie. This is what the aftermath looks like the morning after the night before, and what a night it was. Pockets of disorder here in Belfast and across Northern Ireland following the horrifying events of the night before that, when a video captured on camera the moment that a man was pinned to the street with blood covering his face, his neck and his back as a knife was plunged into his body. And there has been simmering tension here in Northern Ireland, in Belfast, since. People taking to the streets last night in an attempt to make their voice known, to make their voice heard as part of this. Let's take you on a journey here and get a sense of the scene. This is right at the very epicentre of last night's disorder. You can see the aftermath, the shell, the charred remains of people's properties inside there. The living room of someone's property. Clearly, they have had to be evacuated by the emergency services. And then the cars that were set on fire, a number of them strewn across the street here that resemble something like a war zone. And let me tell you, last night we were standing right here and it was incredibly intense. Masked individuals wearing balaclavas, armed with their weapons. They were attempting to attack the police officers, and the Sky News helicopter was overhead at times as well, and it captured the moment that families fled for their lives, terrified at what happened. Let's have a look inside here, if you bear with us as we just come through here. You know, you can just imagine the scene last night, a family sitting in there, watching television, enjoying their evening, when this happened, when the angry mob descended on the building here and attacked them. And this is the exact position situation where the Sky News camera in the helicopter was above and spotted people coming out of there. You can see the celebrations just there in the distance. Forgive the language potentially that you're maybe seeing. 40th birthday celebrations, clothes hanging on the banister there in the staircase. So that gives you a real sense as to the situation here, and the reason that there is this simmering tension, the reason that there is a sense of unease here is because potentially the individual in question, the suspect that is due to appear at Westminster at Belfast Magistrate Court this morning, and that person being a Sudanese national that the police, the PSNI here, have confirmed made a journey from Sudan all the way to Paris, then got on a flight from Paris to Dublin in 2023, and then subsequently made a bus journey from the Irish capital up here to the UK in Belfast. Now, I'm just taking you on a further journey as we continue to talk here, because there's more to see, so bear with me here. But during that journey for that individual, he arrived here in 2023, where he sought asylum and then was given leave to remain, we understand, by the UK Home Office, a visa that was granted until at least 2028. So that's why people here in these communities feel angry at this stage. Clearly, the man is yet to appear in court. He's very much a suspect, and the police have said, have called for calm and have asked people to let them do their jobs. But clearly last night people felt that they needed to make their presence felt here and to come onto the streets themselves. Now, the reason we've moved just down the street here is John, the cameraman, will maybe be able to capture this down there. Those were the scenes that we were also witnessing. Just in the distance down there is the bus that is the bus that was set on fire last night. Huge plumes of smoke billowing into the city, and this became the focal point of those proceedings. And let me tell you, the presence of the media was not welcome here either. People feeling that the mainstream media has an agenda. Clearly, we were here to report the facts. We were here to tell the story of a community that clearly feel on edge. As for the victim in all of this, the attack happened about 10 minutes down the road from where we're standing just now. We understand he remains in a serious condition in hospital, and as I mentioned, the suspect, the Sudanese national, is due to appear here in the city in court this morning.
Conor, thanks so much for that. We really do appreciate it. Viewers might have seen very distasteful language written on one of the walls in the background of part of that report, for which we do apologise.
I mean, look, it shows the depth of the protest and what has happened. You know, Conor just showing that, you know, the family home, the way that this is really spilling out in anger, but impacting so many people there in Belfast. We should say that because of the charge as well, we're being a little bit careful about what we can say about this case. But what we can talk about is one of the heroes who revealed himself as the person who fought off the alleged attacker, a man called Matt McKiernan, responding to a social media post. He said that him and his friend had landed there by chance and that the police had already been called, but saying he got out to protect the young lad.
Vision of the attack is incredibly confronting, but this is the point when the hero used a hurling sports stick to try and get the attacker off the victim. He was joined by two others who risked their own safety to intervene. So
he was in a car. He was driving with his friend, who, by the way, was trained in jiu-jitsu. They got out of the car and he picked up the hurling stick from the boot. He'd been going to hurling practice with his son, and he intervened. It was extraordinary. Another onlooker apparently kicked away the knife, and this all happened before the police got there. Now,
let's bring in Alex to talk a little bit more about the political response, Alex, that we've seen. And despite, as Sophie rightly says, we've been very careful on what can be said because of legal proceedings, some of the other talking points.
Well, I think there's a lot being said about how he was able to get into Belfast. So as Conor was alluding to there, he went from Paris to Dublin to Belfast. So there's questions now over whether he was exploiting an immigration loophole, that porous border that's needed between the Republic and Northern Ireland that underpins the Good Friday Agreement. So I think we'll hear arguments maybe on the right that this is that mass immigration is kind of undermining ways of life, even though Michelle O'Neill, the Northern Ireland First Minister, she's saying, this shouldn't be taken out on people who come and live in the UK and Northern Ireland peacefully. I think the other thing that's interesting politically is reform. OK, so Suella Braverman was Home Secretary at the time that the suspect was granted leave to remain, and Robert Jenrick was Immigration Minister. They're now in Reform UK, and I think there will be a little bit of disquiet in that party at taking on some of these Tories who are having to defend this record and undermining what Reform is trying to do now. Some of the really tough policies they've announced, abolishing leave to remain, mass deportations. I think it really highlights that reputational risk that Nigel Farage absorbed when he took on former Conservatives.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? You mentioned there the common travel area, which, as you said, this allows a kind of free movement between Ireland and the United Kingdom. We talk such a lot about small boats and those channel crossings. There has been such a big debate about it. But obviously another way for people to enter the United Kingdom, I feel, is going to receive increasing coverage is through that route, right? And look, we can't say too much about this case because of the charge, obviously, but I think there will be a debate about the number of people who are entering the UK via Ireland, right?
Absolutely, and I think with all eyes on small boats, as you're right, those other means of getting in on lorries, that used to be the kind of the most obvious way of doing it. Those can still carry on because the focus is really on stopping the small boats.
Yeah, but I think the thing here is that it's a legal route. If you come, if you travel within the kind of EU to Ireland, and then you don't have to get on a lorry, right? You can just go to Belfast, right? So interesting to see how the political debate kind of moves in that area as well. Alex, thanks very much.
We'll have plenty more on that story throughout the morning, including reaction from Shadow Northern Ireland Secretary Alex Burkhart, who will be joining us at 9:15.
Now, to bring you the latest on the conflict in Iran, because the US has launched a fresh wave of strikes against Iran after Donald Trump accused the country of shooting down a US helicopter over the Strait of Hormuz.
In response, the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, said it had launched strikes on 2 US bases in the region, in Bahrain and in Jordan. Let's bring in Adam, who's live for us in Jerusalem. Adam, this week was meant to be, it was a couple of days ago, I think, that the President said 2 or 3 days and we'll have something signed. Clearly, in the last 24 hours, that hasn't happened, quite the opposite.
Yeah, I think, though, we've got quite accustomed to this biorhythm, haven't we, of the US President says that a deal is very, very close, and then it just seems to sort of progressively become less close. And then these flare-ups, these tensions are becoming quite common. In this case, what happened was an American Apache helicopter was over the Strait of Hormuz and appears to have been hit by a drone. Now, Americans say that this is a one-way attack drone. The Apache came down into the water on the side of Oman and was rescued by the American military, actually using sea drones, remotely controlled ships. So the pilots from the Apache were both brought back apparently unharmed. But the Americans saw this as an Iranian attack on them and said that they had to respond. So the Americans then fired a series of attacks on Iranian air defence and military infrastructure. You might have thought that that would have been the end of the tit for tat, instead of which Iran decided that it had been attacked and it had to respond and has launched a series of missiles, believed to be 21 missiles at 3 destinations, at Kuwait, Bahrain and Jordan. Jordan, for the first time, being targeted. 5 missiles fired towards what is an American airbase in Jordan. Jordan says all of those were intercepted. It is understood that almost all of the other ones, there is not a clarity yet on whether all of the other missiles were intercepted. There are certainly no reports of any significant damage being caused, if any, to bases in Bahrain or to sites in Kuwait. And perhaps that is the end of the matter, because I think the Iranians and the Americans still fundamentally do want to do a deal, despite the fact that, I mean, we live in this slightly curious parallel universe where these two countries have just fired a series of missiles at each other, but they still, I think, behind the scenes, want to do a deal that brings this war to a conclusion. Why? Well, clearly Iran is suffering enormous economic hardship and believes that it can do a deal that does not involve it having to completely dismantle its nuclear infrastructure, to not have to dismantle its ballistic missiles, and that will enable it to continue funding proxies such as Hezbollah in Lebanon. And the United States, I think, frankly, just wants this done with. It feels that this war is dragged on too long, that it is really hurting President Trump's approval ratings, and that, most importantly, that the price of oil has gone up to round about $100 a barrel, and that is hurting the United States economy and economies all around the world. Basically, the benefits of it are now massively outweighed by the downside. So both sides, I think, want to come up with something, but both sides equally feel that they can't turn a blind eye to any kind of attack, which is why we had this tit for tat that seems to have made a lot of noise, rather like the exchanges a few days ago. A lot of noise, a lot of headlines, but not actually any signs of casualties. And not for the first time, an uneasy peace lingers over this region.
Adam, as ever, thanks so much. All eyes continue to be on the region to see if anything more positive materialises. Now, the World Cup kicks off tomorrow, and US officials have given more details about why a top referee was denied entry to America ahead of the tournament. Yeah, we brought you the story yesterday. So it's a guy called Omar Artan, not just any referee, right? He has been voted the best referee in Africa. He was detained and questioned for 11 hours after landing in Miami, believing he was going to be one of the officials at the World Cup. Our US correspondent James Matthews caught up with the head of the White House's World Cup task force to ask why.
Andrew, can I ask, why did the referee Omar Artan, why was he refused entry to the United States?
Look, there are a few things we can't talk about, but what I can tell you is that anybody who's communicating with bad actors that plan harm against the United States of America are not going to be admitted entrants, and we're not going to allow a soccer tournament, no matter how big it is, to threaten Americans. What we are proud of is we're proud of the work that's been done from a visa perspective, the fact that all players, all coaches up to this point have gotten in the country. We've worked extremely hard with consular affairs, with CBP and USCIS to make that happen.
Was he in contact with bad actors, and who were these bad actors?
Again, there are some things that I can't talk about. What I can tell you is we're going to make sure that this is a safe and secure tournament, not just for American citizens and permanent residents, but all the people who legally are traveling here to the United States.
Given the people having trouble accessing this tournament and their skin colour...
How so?
Is this shaping up as a racist World Cup?
First off, explain your question, because I think the premise is false.
Swiss striker Briel Mbolo, Cameroon-born, he had trouble getting into the country. Iraqi striker Ayman Hussein was detained for 7 hours.
Are in the country?
They're in the country.
They're in the country, exactly.
They were detained.
Don't you think the most important thing about a tournament is making sure that those fans that come to the United States, all those Americans that are going to enjoy this tournament, that they actually are safe and secure? That's what I ultimately think is important. We're going to continue to focus on that.
Was a Somalian referee not allowed into the country because Donald Trump
on this one here, sir.
has a problem with Somalia?
Well, Omar Artan has given an interview to the New York Times, and he has said, I am very, very disappointed. I'm just simply a referee who's trying to live his life, live his dream, the biggest dream of my life, to come to the World Cup.
And there are concerns, of course, still that the tournament's opening match could be disrupted by huge protests in Mexico City, of course, one of the 3 countries hosting it, US, Mexico and Canada.
Thousands of teachers blocked a road leading to the Azteca Stadium to demand more pay and better working conditions. Here's our sports correspondent, Rob Harris.
This should be the heart of the main World Cup fan zone here in Mexico City. Instead, barricades blocking the way to Sokolov Square. There is still a screen there, but how much of a party mood will there be when protest has taken over the capital? And this is why, all the way down here, for 600 metres, teachers have been in tents for more than a week, and they're planning to stay here, angry at their pay and pensions.
The President, Claudia Sheinbaum Pardo, has a promise with us, and this promise is broken.
This primary school teacher tells me he wants to use the World Cup to show the world things are not right in Mexico.
We are here, we are fighting.
The teachers told me they feel exhausted and exploited, while feeling the World Cup is just for the business classes and unaffordable for them.
The teachers just want to be heard. They're using this World Cup to get their voice across, to hope the President, Claudia Sheinbaum, listens. So, if fans are coming here expecting to arrive at the Fan Fest, instead, they'll be confronted by hundreds of tents of protesting teachers.
We'll also have lots more, of course, on the World Cup later this morning. The former manager and player, Sir Harry Redknapp, is going to be talking to us at 9:30, so worth sticking around for that one. Now, here we go. There you are. Of course, we're going to be talking an awful lot about our lead story today. The attack that we saw in Belfast, the protests that were sparked by that. And I can bring in now our next guest, Party Chair, Labour Party Chair Anna Turley, also Cabinet Office Minister. Great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
So we've seen this morning burn out houses, burnt down coaches as these protests have been sparked in Belfast. What's your reaction to what we've seen?
Well, it's horrendous to see that. It must be really horrifying and really frightening for all those families living in that community. Nobody wants to see that. I would appeal, like many others have, for calm on the streets of Belfast and around the country as well. Those people are innocent. They shouldn't be getting caught up. We've seen children and families having to leave their homes, and no one wants to see that. We know the situation that happened the night before last was absolutely horrific, absolutely horrendous, and there's no place for that on the streets of the United Kingdom, but we have to let the police and the justice system take its course now, and nobody should be stoking this up or bringing violence to the streets anywhere in the United Kingdom.
How, I guess, incumbent is it on politicians to act responsibly?
It's really important. We know everyone is horrified. No one could see that video footage and not be outraged and horrified by what's happened. But there is one person responsible for that, and that is the perpetrator, who has been arrested, who is up before court today. So I really want to commend the police, the justice system, for how swiftly they've acted. But I also want to, like others, praise the bravery of the first responders, and particularly those members of the public who ran towards danger and saved the life of the victim, who I hope is making a speedy recovery. But we all have a responsibility to recognise that person is responsible for that crime, and I hope he sees swift justice.
I mean, look, it's difficult, isn't it, when you have a charge, as you say, and it's active proceedings ongoing, the allegations, obviously, even though I know this can be difficult for people to understand when we've seen what we have seen, but these allegations, we have to be careful about what we say in this situation. No one wants to ruin a court case and stop justice happening because of that. I did want to talk to you a bit about immigration, though. So on Tuesday, police revealed details of the suspect's immigration status. So he flew from Paris to Dublin. He then, we believe, entered the UK by just crossing the border, right, between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, where he claimed asylum upon arrival and was then granted leave to remain in the UK then until 2028. We talk an awful lot about small boats.
Yeah.
How many people are entering the UK in this way?
Well, this is a concern, of course. You know, we wouldn't want to see anybody of this nature being able to evade or go through safe countries and come to this country to cause the kind of action that they have. So I think it's really, really important that we make sure that we continue to work extremely hard to secure our borders and make sure that no one is able to abuse them.
Do we know how many people come into the UK in this way? Do we know or not?
Possibly the Home Secretary might forgive me. I don't have that figure to hand here, but that is a concern. If people are exploiting the Common Travel Agreement in this way, then that's not acceptable. That's not what it's there for. It's been in existence for over 100 years, and it's absolutely right that people can travel between the Ireland and Northern Ireland freely, but it's really important that we make sure that we have a fair system that is led by data and intelligence, and we make sure that people are not able to exploit the asylum system or the Common Travel Agreement in this way.
I just want to read to you, this is Emma Little-Pengelly, who's the Unionist Deputy First Minister. We've been aware for some considerable time there are people coming across the Irish border to claim asylum. We don't know their background, we do not know the routes that they come through, and we do not know if they have any convictions. Are you going to be looking at this?
Yeah, I know that conversations are ongoing with the Home Secretary, the Secretary of State for Ireland, with Northern Ireland.
What does that mean? Are you specifically talking about this route and the fact that it could be being exploited?
It's been raised many times. I've heard it myself raised in Parliament, so I know it is a live conversation discussion, and we have to, of course, work with the Government of Ireland as well in this process. So it's really important. But as you said, it is quite sensitive. It's a border that and a Common Travel Agreement that's existed for 100 years. It's important that people are able to travel freely between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, and so we've got to make sure that we prevent this exploitation. And I know, as I said, those conversations are happening.
Has Brexit made it harder?
I think that we've certainly had to take a lot of action since Brexit. I know that there's been more investment in data sharing. There's been more agreements being made around how
Brexit made it harder?
I don't have the statistics to be able to, or the data to analyse this, and I'm not going to jump to any presumptions. But I think, it is a common travel agreement, and we need to ensure that it is not used as a back route for people to come here and exploit our asylum system.
Restore want to abolish the asylum system. Reform said they would ban all visas for everyone from Sudan. What do you make of the political reaction that we've seen?
Well, I think firstly we have to be really clear not to have a knee-jerk reaction. That's the important thing. As I said at the beginning, there is one person responsible for this, and that is the perpetrator, and the priority is to bring him to justice. But of course we have to make sure that we look at our immigration and asylum system as we continue to do. I'm really proud that we've really tightened up the situation around foreign national offenders. So we've deported over 10,000 people who have committed crimes in this country who should not be there. I'm proud of that, and no one should be coming to this country committing these kinds of crimes. We need to make sure they are removed immediately, and that we continue to prevent and reduce this kind of immigration.
You're announcing more mental health support for children today. What's the idea?
Well, one of our big manifesto commitments that I was really proud of is that we are bringing in mental health support teams to every school and college by the end of this Parliament. We're now halfway there, so half of schools now have access to a mental health support team, which is a great achievement within 2 years, and I'm really looking forward to that continuing to roll out, because schools tell me all the time in my constituency that they desperately need some help and support, specialist training and advice for mental health, and we know it is a challenge that so many children and young people face. So I'm pleased that we're continuing to put a huge amount of investment into that area.
Alan Milburn, who of course has been looking into this area and lots of different areas, has been saying how important this is, right? But it's interesting, I just wonder, are you treating the symptom and not the problem? Because when Alan Milburn was in the studio, he told me that the reason this is a more anxious generation is because of phones. It's leading to functional impairment. This is a real thing, it's not a fake thing. And on the social media ban, a blanket ban, by the way, the evidence points in one direction, and I know this is an issue Keir Starmer's bothered about. The question is not, are you bothered, are you going to do something about it? I mean, Alan Milburn wants, pretty clearly, I think, wants to see a blanket ban on social media for under 16s.
Well, I think, going back to your original question, I think we have to treat both the cause and the symptoms, and so that's why we're providing this mental health support. But you're absolutely right that we can see that there is a driver, and so many parents who've responded to our consultation on social media have said they are deeply concerned about the impact on
social media.
I've met not just families in my constituency, I've met children and young people in my constituency who themselves are asking for help and support. They're saying it's out of control. Children and parents and teachers are saying we want intervention.
What do you are you in sort of support of a ban?
I would be very pleased to see a ban for under 16s, but I'm not going to pre-announce an announcement. Which I think the consultation has come in. The government is working at pace to absorb all of that. As I said, I was very privileged and honoured, and it was quite overwhelming actually to be in number 10 with some of the families who have had who were victims of various tragic cases around social media, and hearing their testimonies and their pleas for help and support from the government. I know the Prime Minister takes, and Liz Kendall both take this extremely seriously. I know we are on the verge of taking some big action, and I'm really pleased to see that. And I think parents, teachers and children themselves will actually welcome this.
OK, thank you very much,
Thanks,
Anne Turley, speaking to us there. Coming up, we are going to be talking to a former Northern Ireland police officer about the disorder that we saw last night.
I'm Ed Conway, and in my new podcast, Stuff Matters, we take an object, crack it open, and reveal the world-shaping forces hidden inside. A pair of earbuds. These are at the heart of a geopolitical battle. The humble banana. This is an economic marvel. A child's booster seat. What if they're actually deterring us from having children? Now, if you want to hear more about all of this stuff, come and listen to my new podcast. It's called Stuff Matters.
I urge you not to look away. If Hamas hands the hostages over, they will end this conflict. The world has been watching. Good to see you again. How are you? Did she say how he was?
The conditions are awful.
The jets were ordered to come back. Historic day here today. How will you respond if India does launch airstrikes?
They'll be allowed to warn.
I'm just going to put some body armor on. I'm Yalda Hakim.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist... My darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
...is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more. Well, let's kick off and make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs? He's coming out! What more do you need?
Welcome back. Returning to our top story, the protests in Belfast that saw homes, cars and a bus set on fire. Northern Ireland's First Ministers condemned the violence as outright thuggery.
Now, it was sparked after a stabbing in the city on Monday night that left a man in his 40s with serious injuries. A 30-year-old Sudanese man will appear in court today charged with attempted murder. We're not going into more details about the attack. I know things have been circulating on social media because there is a charge. We do not want to do anything to jeopardise justice taking place.
We're joined now by Stephen White, the former Assistant Chief Constable at Police Service Northern Ireland. Thanks so much for joining us, Stephen. Good to see you.
Morning.
First, your reaction to the scale of what we saw overnight, but why don't we start with the attack itself?
Well, it was a very vicious, violent attack in a residential area of North Belfast that I know very well. I was the commander there some years ago, and that particular part of Belfast has suffered grievously in terms of violence during the Troubles, and things were certainly getting a lot better. Old army bases are now turned into sports centres and so on. So there's a good news story in that area. But sadly, this very vicious, violent attack has put community tension at a very high level. And of course, it's the police who are trying to deal with sporadic violence that has erupted in the aftermath of that.
Can you talk to us a bit more about the history of the area? As you say, it's an area that you know very well. You talked to us about its suffering during the Troubles. Talk to us a bit more about that.
Well, like a lot of Northern Ireland, particularly Belfast, it's a patchwork of what we call orange and green, those areas that are pro-British unionist and those that are pro-United Ireland nationalist. And in quite a lot of the places, the two communities are living side by side and divided by peace walls, peace lines that still exist. Community relations are always quite fragile in that area. Something like 1 in 7 of all the murders that took place during the dark days of Northern Ireland Troubles happened in that area. So it's a very concentrated area of working class housing. And of course, this particular incident has, in a sense, sparked off the whole debate about housing, employment, how we deal with those who are in social need and so on. So it's a very complex situation. Northern Ireland policing has always been challenging, very complicated, very complex, and this particular issue has just added to that.
Talk to us about your assessment of the protest last night.
Well, peaceful protest is fine. Illegal thuggery, violence is not on. And again, sadly, it's the police who are caught trying to deal with this. I should say I am very impressed by the police restraint, the police tactics at the time, trying to gather evidence. But the reality is the current police service of Northern Ireland is under strength. It's under a lot of challenges, and they cannot simply be everywhere at all times to protect everyone. And sadly, people are taking advantage of that. They're ramping up anti-foreigners sentiments. And sadly, the most cowardly thuggery is taking place where individual families are being targeted because of the colour of their skin or their ethnicity. And it's a horrible thing to see. And for those of us who were brought up in that area, as I was at East Belfast, to see houses burning, families fleeing, sadly, it brings back memories of the darkest days in Belfast's divided history.
Yeah, you speak so powerfully about it, I have to say. Just talk a bit more about the anti-immigration sentiment that you are talking about there. Has there been, I guess, a rise in those crimes more recently?
Yeah, I mean, as a former police officer, you'll understand that I'm not in any way party political, and I don't really want to get involved into the political arguments about it. But there are those who are pointing out that, for example, Brexit and the situation with the border between this part of the United Kingdom, Northern Ireland, and the Republic of Ireland, which is still part of the European Union, is one issue. That freedom of movement, the common travel area, where people can come from mainland Europe into the Republic of Ireland and into the UK via Northern Ireland. That is an issue. There's an issue around who monitors, who supervises those who are either illegal immigrants, legal immigrants, those asking for political asylum and so on. And of course, they're very genuine refugees who need our care, they need our compassion. There's also a large number of foreigners who have made Northern Ireland their homes, who are contributing to the economy, to the National Health Service. Business entrepreneurs, we had one burned out just a few days ago in a disgraceful scene in the Shankill Road. People who are bringing employment to the area, people who are contributing to the area. So there's a whole complex issue about the social needs, particularly in working class areas of Belfast, and how those of a different ethnicity are being accepted. And as I say, while the police can respond to crime and try to deter crime and try to provide public order and reassurance, they simply cannot be everywhere, every time.
Stephen, can we return to the attack itself? And it'd be great if you could reflect for us on the heroism, the bravery that we saw from Matt McCain and others on the scene. You've commended the police, of course. but particular bravery from a civilian.
Absolutely. And I mean, who is to know what was going through the mind of those individuals who rushed to the rescue of the person being attacked? Now, I don't know, I don't think anyone will know until the case comes to court and the evidence is produced exactly what sparked that violent attack. For anyone witnessing it or anyone seeing it on video, it's horrific. It's very, very vicious, very, very violent, very, very dangerous. So for someone to rush, as they did, to the scene to try to save that man's life, to try to prevent the criminal attack, the violent attack continuing, has to be commended, because they simply didn't know what they were facing. As in other parts, I'm thinking of the attacks on Westminster Bridge in London and so on, those members of the citizenry who respond to help a fellow citizen have to be commended. And sometimes they have to use force, as indeed police officers have to use legal force, proportionate force, to try to deal with the horrors and the dangers they're facing. So, of course, I'll take my hat off to anyone who tries to step in to prevent someone being injured or indeed killed.
Thank you so much. It's been really, really good to get your take on the heroism we've just been speaking about, but also more of an understanding about this particular community where the incident took place. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, thank you. And can I just once again commend those police officers also who are spending all night trying to keep this city safe. Thank you.
Stephen White, former Assistant Chief Constable there, joining us. Our thanks again. Now, it's just over a week to go until the Makerfield by-election, and it's a vote that could have big consequences for the future of the Labour Party. Polls open next Thursday.
Ahead of that, our national correspondent Tom Parmenter has been talking to people to find out what kind of issues they care about most.
Which one do you know that is going to pull Britain back into being Britain?
I think the country's finished. It's a toilet, basically.
You made your mind up? Oh, absolutely. You know, you could have a gun to my head and I wouldn't vote them.
We're in the constituency of Makerfield. This is a key political battleground, and the result of this by-election could give Britain a whole new look.
Everywhere is in the same situation. We've got gas bills, electric bills that we can't afford to pay, council tax, that is a farce. So someone needs to change that, they need to sort that out.
Do any of the candidates who you've taken any notice of tell you that they're going to do that?
No, not one. I mean, they're saying that they're going to, but they're not going to deliver that.
How many leaflets have you had? Enough to make a small bonfire, that's for sure. This is a tactical vote. I'll definitely vote Burnham. If I thought Green had a chance, I'd be voting Green, but as we are, it's a straight fight.
The Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, wants to win here so he can take a shot at the Labour leadership.
It's not just about us anymore, it's about, I think, the future of politics in the country. It feels a bit more, you know, a bit overwhelming really that we could be pivotal in this.
Do you think the things that really matter in this by-election to the people here are getting the attention, the focus that they need?
I don't think anybody's getting focus and attention that they need all over the country. I just think the whole system's broken. It's the worst it's ever been.
That pessimism is something I wanted to ask more about from this builder turned businessman.
Entrepreneurs, people in industries, they want to make money. They're in, OK, of course they want to employ people, but they're in business to make money. And so giving all the money away to people on welfare, not being able to have control of the borders, it just puts everybody off. If we don't make change this time, then I think it's over. I think the country's finished. It's a toilet, basically. I'd love to ask you what you think.
There are a lot of problems. Describing it all as a toilet seems pretty extreme.
Well, it is extreme, but that's how people feel. That's how I feel.
For David, there are other parties that could influence the result.
The problem lies with Restore. You know, I mean, they're putting a candidate out there as well, you know, so they might take some people from Reform. I see all parties are pretty much the same, even Reform, but I'd rather vote for them than vote for Labour.
You made your mind up?
Oh, absolutely. You know, you could have a gun to my head and I wouldn't vote them. Never. And I've grown up voting Labour all my life.
We've met so many people here who are fed up with political manoeuvres and missteps. and those who feel no connection at all.
Have you had politicians on your door trying to get your vote?
Nope. Not a one, not a phone call, not a knock, nothing. The bottom line is nobody cares anymore.
It's quite a sad thing to say, isn't it?
It's very sad, but our country is in the state that it's in today because there's no need for it, there's no equality.
Can anyone sort that out?
Not in this government, certainly not in reform. We don't want him in, do we?
So how to pick a winner? It's tough when the politics and the people seem so out of sync.
Well, of course, there are 14 candidates standing in the Makerfield by-election next week, and you can see them on your screen right now. That's the full list of the 14 candidates who are standing in the Makerfield by-election.
Time now for a look at the weather.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
It's a small party.
The weather remains cool and unsettled for the rest of the week, but the weekend is looking much more settled with sunny spells lifting temperatures into the mid-20s. Before that, we have showers and some longer spells of rain. Winds will be lighter than yesterday, so the showers will be slower moving, delivering downpours in places. The showers will drift eastward through the day as the southwest and Wales begin to dry up.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
So, coming up, will the UK follow in Australia's footsteps and ban social media for under 16s? We're going to be talking to the Australian Communications Minister, Annika Wells, 6 months on from their landmark law.
I bet right now you often find yourself asking why. Why was a certain decision taken? Why did something happen? Why did they say or do that? I'm Neil Patterson, and it's my job as a journalist to find out why. Just explain why.
It's a difficult one.
Well, I mean, it's massive.
It's a very, very severe situation.
So if you want to make sense of this complicated world, Sky News' new podcast, This Is Why, is your daily fix. One story every day, and we can find out why together. Listen and follow wherever you get your podcasts.
A lifeline for millions of people living on both sides of one of the most volatile international borders.
It's dams like these that have become inflection points between the two nuclear-armed neighbours, which could potentially lead to water wars in the future. A terror attack has shattered the peace and tranquility of Kashmir. At least 26 people have been killed and as many injured when militants fired upon them. I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi.
The old and young, all weary after being trapped for days as the worst floods have hit Kerala in a century.
3 days we are on a rooftop. They have no food, nothing.
The roads have been inundated. The only way out is to get people by boat. There have been reported deaths and many injuries, several critical.
Many families will grapple with the unimaginable loss of one of the worst disasters in India's aviation history.
The spiraling violence between two nuclear-armed neighbours that harbour decades of hostility just seems to be getting worse by the day.
Garbage dumps like this not only threaten the lives of millions of people, but also pose a deadly consequence on the environment and climate.
It is a source of death, decay, disease and pollution for hundreds of thousands of people living in its shadows.
There is so much disease because of this garbage. Sometimes it's so difficult to just breathe.
Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Over the next 45 days, an estimated 400 million Hindu pilgrims are expected to converge here in Prayagraj on the banks of the holy river Ganga and Yamuna. It's a real kaleidoscope of people from all walks of life.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
We're in an area that's just been reclaimed.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
People are directly protesting.
The whole neighborhood is rallied around her.
It's been impenetrable to journalists over the last 2 years of war in Sudan.
I've been waiting for this for 2 years. It doesn't feel like a big homecoming.
It was never going to be pretty. War isn't pretty.
Now, in the week ahead, we're expecting the government to make a major announcement on social media use for under-16s. We've had lots and lots of hints from the government on this programme. Technology Minister telling us yesterday a total ban still on the table, and also Anna Turnley just 15 minutes or so ago, again, saying she would be very pleased if it was something that this government decided to implement.
Of course, it's something Australia decided to do already 6 months ago. How's it all going, and what could we learn from Australia? Delighted to say we're joined by Annika Wells, the Australian Communications Minister. Annika, a very good afternoon, I guess, to you there. Good morning from London. Thanks for joining us. So this is really, as Communication Ministers, your ban. How's it going?
It's going pretty well. We think that it's already been a success and that we are now all having this global conversation about social media and the harms that it's having on our children and young people. We are 6 months into the ban being in effect in Australia. We've had more than 5 million social media accounts deactivated. That's a big deal for us because we only have 1.2 million Australians aged between 13 and 16. It speaks to the fact that lots of young people have multiple accounts and lots of young people are trying to find their way around the ban, which we expected. And we have always said that the onus here is on big tech to do the right thing and to remove these accounts rather than it being a question or a fight between parents and kids in each household across Australia.
I've got to be honest with you, a lot of people who are against a ban here are using what they describe as the evidence from Australia to say, look, this doesn't work, loads of the kids are getting around it, so what's the point?
Well, those people, I think, and their allies in big tech would like us to all talk about the infallibilities of the initiative because they don't want other countries to follow in our footsteps. More than a dozen countries have announced that they will have a social media ban since we decided to do it and implemented it on 10 December last year. Obviously, the UK is still considering it today. But of course they want to throw doubt over the success of the measure. They don't want other countries to follow suit. But we know, both anecdotally and from the qualitative and quantitative data that we are collecting at eSafety, which is our equivalent of Ofcom here in Australia, that the ban is already being successful and, yeah, it's going to look untidy for the next 3 years. People who have had something taken away from them, a 15-year-old who's had accounts taken away from them, is always going to try and get back on. But my eyes are focused on the horizon, and in 3 years' time, there's going to be a generation of Australians who will never have a social media account until they turn 16, and that's the cultural change that we're moving towards.
You said there it's been untidy and would likely be untidy for a couple of years. Would it be therefore understandable for a country like the UK to take a little bit longer to learn from the untidiness that you're experiencing so that they can get it closer to perfect from the day that it gets announced, or do you think you just crack on and do it yourselves?
Absolutely not. As a parent of young children, I think we all live with untidiness as the modern existence, and every single day that you delay, you are affecting the mental health and the outcomes of young people who are continuing to be addicted to social media online. These are harmful features: endless scroll, disappearing messages, toxic popularity meters, the algorithm. We know that they are affecting people's mental health and that they are harmful. So it's almost like product safety recall, you know? And we are confident that whilst it will be imperfect, and we never said it was going to be anything but imperfect, you can't fence the ocean, we can't control the internet, you can police the sharks.
I think me and Wilf have some sympathy with the untidiness of parenthood.
It's the speed with which it gets untidy.
It's extraordinary.
Unbelievable.
You said in March this year that some big tech companies are failing to obey the laws, and I just wondered if we could unpick this a bit, because I think what's interesting about the ban on social media is you're not trying to kind of criminalise parents, you're trying to put the onus on the tech companies, right? How easy or not has it been to get them to change their rules and, I guess, to hold them responsible if underage users are on their sites?
I think I said they were taking the mickey in that press conference that you might be quoting from. We did expect big tech to do the right thing. We expect big tech, if they're going to come and do business on Australian shores, to obey Australian laws. I think that's reasonable. But we do feel that they are doing the bare minimum to get by on these laws. And the Safety Commissioner, who is our independent regulator in this space, is currently undertaking investigations to gather evidence about that, because the law says it has to be systemically, not taking reasonable steps to systemically avoid the laws.
I guess the way this is, as Sophie kind of alluded to, been framed a bit over here is people are getting around it, we're learning lessons, maybe it's not the right approach. Do you have a message to big tech about people that wonder whether you'll see it through, whether you'll back down at all?
We're not backing down, we're going further. We will be introducing a digital duty of care to the Parliament later this year. A digital duty of care will capture a lot of the whatabouts that are in this discussion around the fallibility of a social media ban. It will change the whole balance of the system so that the onus will be on big tech to prevent harm from occurring in the first place systemically on their platforms, rather than at the moment being a bit of a wild, wild west, as President Macron would say, and the harm occurring and then it being on the individual person who suffered the harm or their parents, and I know that you've got some high-profile cases in the UK, to try and take up and fight individually on their behalf. These are some of the biggest, richest, most resourced companies in the world. No individual parent should need to do that. We've got their backs, and I would welcome the UK government joining us.
Really interesting to speak to you today. Thank you for joining us. I can't help but notice the signs you got behind you. Is it a birthday in your house?
Oh, not today, but I have twin boys, so there's a lot of art cycling through the office.
Love it, love it. Great to talk. Thanks very much for being with us.
Annika Wells there, the Australian Communications Minister. Really interesting.
Yeah,
interesting.
It is interesting. And I think that argument actually about, look, it's going to be untidy when you take something away from someone, but it's actually about the kind of 10-year-olds, the 9-year-olds, whatever, of the future. Interesting.
And definitely resolute. No debate here about whether it's working, and they'll see it through no matter what, which I thought was very clear from them. We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will be back with all of the day's top stories. Of course, ongoing reaction to the situation in Northern Ireland following the brutal attack a day or so ago and protests overnight.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
Perfect. Let's bring you some breaking news.
Being a Sky News presenter.
I began by asking,
thank you so much,
trusting us to tell her story. The battle for number 10.
Sky News has been given exclusive access.
Let me give you a sneak peek. It was the day those present would never forget.
Why did you decide to open up and tell your story?
Good morning. It is 8 o'clock and welcome to Mornings with Ridge and Frost.
With Sophie and Wilf, a very good morning from me as well.
Chaos in Belfast, with houses and cars set on fire and residents forced to flee after protests sparked by Monday's knife attack.
As more details emerge, praise for this man, this hero who rushed towards the scene to stop the attack.
The US and Iran exchanged strikes after an American Apache helicopter was downed over the Strait of Hormuz.
Also today, as World Cup fever builds, we'll be asking Harry Redknapp for all of his predictions.
And we'll also try and find out why Africa's top referee was denied entry to the US by asking the White House's World Cup official.
A very good morning to you. Welcome to the programme. Well, it was a night of serious unrest in Northern Ireland after major protests broke out in the wake of a stabbing on Monday, a brutal stabbing on Monday.
We're going to take you straight to pictures from the scene that was facing police and residents in Belfast this morning. So here you can see a group of men seen throwing bins that had been set on fire at a bus.
Our reporters were on the ground as chaos broke out. We'll speak to our correspondent Conor Gillis in just a second, but you can see in this video, he filmed himself, that officers rushed to quell violence in different pockets across the city.
And look, for families living there, it turned into danger. A number of houses were set on fire. You can see the smoke there billowing from some of those properties.
The protests stemmed from a brutal knife attack in the city on Monday. A 30-year-old Sudanese man has been charged with attempted murder and will appear in court later today. That does significantly limit what we can and can't say about the event, as the most important thing from now is that justice is served, and we don't want to affect that. Well, the victim is a man in his 40s, remains in hospital with serious injuries.
Well, let's go to Conor, who's in Belfast this morning. Conor, what is it like?
Good morning, Sophie. Good morning, Wilf. Well, this is the aftermath. Let's have a look at it here, the morning after the night before. And I think it's fair to say that it resembles something like a war zone. Cars that were set on fire here last night, essentially at the epicentre of this violence, of this disorder. And it spilled across various communities here, pockets of disorder, as the PSNI were putting it. Let's have a look into some of the homes that have been destroyed at the centre of this as well. You can see the TV has literally melted off the wall as part of the blaze that has engulfed this building here. If we continue along here, we have to watch where we step. There's a massive shard of glass, for example, waiting to fall at any moment here. The common close that enters the building and heads upstairs, well, clearly that was used as an evacuation route amid the chaos last night, because it was hooded individuals wearing balaclavas who surged down this street and terrified the local community inside. Now, more details have started to emerge, some experiences, some eyewitness accounts of what it was like here just 12 hours ago. And let me take you over to this property here, because this home over here was completely destroyed as part of the events that we have witnessed. Now, it was thought that this was potentially part of a firebombing campaign. Well, I have spoken to the owner of this property, who's a woman who is from Belfast, and she has said, actually, the gangs were targeting these cars. You can see the shell, the charred remains that are left from that. And actually, the flames, the ferocity of the flames meant that her property was completely destroyed as a result. She's been here this morning, clearly far too traumatised to have a conversation on camera, but the clean-up operation is underway. We'll get to that in a second. But clearly this property here, adjoining the one that we've just been discussing, it has not suffered as extensive a damage inside, but clearly the front door has gone away. And I have been having a conversation with the owner of that property, the occupant of that property, who had to make an escape out the aback. She says there were children here. It was a terrifying experience. She is from Ukraine. She has fled war in Ukraine and seemed fairly okay, actually, about what happened here, about what she endured, given her circumstances of where she has originated from. But let's have a listen to part of that interview now.
Someone said, like, the fire opposite to mine on fire, and then, like, it all, like, kind of blew up because of the cars in between, you know. Yeah, and, like, my front door was on fire as well. I mean, the house inside isn't damaged. It's more like the front of the house.
And were you in the house at the time?
Yeah, I was in the house with my dog, and I had to, like, escape through, like, the back door.
Now, a lot of the tension, a lot of the simmering tension here in Northern Ireland last night has been as a result of the suspect at the centre of this investigation. That video that has gone global, horrifying footage showing a man pinned to the ground around 10 minutes from here. He remains in a serious condition in hospital. Blood was covering his face. We know that he has suffered knife wound injuries to his back, to his face, and to other parts of his body as well. The suspect in this case is a Sudanese national, a man that we know made a journey from Sudan to Paris initially, then got a flight from Paris to Dublin before making a bus journey from Dublin here to the UK in Belfast in 2023, where he sought asylum and was given leave to remain, we understand, until at least 2028. So that is feeding into the anger, is feeding into the tension here in this community. But clearly, this man has yet to appear in court. He will appear at Belfast Magistrates Court within the next couple of hours to face a raft of charges as part of this investigation. But clearly, a massive clean-up operation is now underway. We have spotted some officials from the local council here attempting to begin the process of clearing the streets, sweeping the streets. But as you can see, they've got a massive task ahead of them.
Conor, great stuff. Thanks so much. Really, really great footage, coverage, excuse me, sad footage. Very good coverage of it. Well, Northern Ireland's First Minister, Michelle O'Neill, criticised the damage being caused by the protests, posting on social media. She put groups of masked men burning families out of their homes as nothing less than disgusting cowardice. This has nothing to do with community. This is outright thuggery. The attack in North Belfast was heinous and wrong. But there are dangerous attempts to exploit that to target and attack innocent people who are simply trying to live, work and raise their families here.
We just wanted to talk about this man who, Matthew Mackenzie, who raced towards the danger. This is a man who was at the scene just randomly with his friend in a car, his friend called Andre, when he noticed what had happened. He got out of the car, he retrieved a hurling stick from the back of his car, and you can see what happened next. He intervened. He struck the alleged attacker with that stick, and his friend also getting involved, another bystander kicking away the knife. It's truly astonishing and a moment of real bravery.
Real bravery and running to the scene of danger to help a fellow citizen. As the former police chief, deputy police chief of Northern Ireland was telling us earlier, it really deserves to be commended. Great little moment of positivity in all of this. Now, throughout the evening, politicians across the spectrum came out to condemn the attacks, including some here in Westminster. Let's bring in Alex, our political correspondent, who has a bit more on this. Alex, what have been the key Westminster political takes?
Well, everybody is sort of condemning the uniquely awful nature of this attack, but also the violence that's followed. Politicians have been calling for calm. They don't want to inflame tensions, but obviously it is a really fraught situation, given the suspect's background. That's been a key talking point as well, his immigration status, how he was allowed to make that journey from Paris from Paris to Dublin and then to Belfast, and who was in charge at the time that this happened. It's the Conservatives, and some of those former Conservatives are now in Reform. So I think we're going to see simmering tensions in Reform. Some figures, who have been sceptical about former Conservatives joining the party when they have to defend this record, and maybe some concerns that it undermines what Reform is trying to do now around immigration and asylum as well.
And there's also, of course, I guess, we've had this huge focus on small boats, and it feels like there are now going to be questions about the common travel area, as you say, that allows this kind of free movement between the UK and Ireland. I thought it was interesting talking to Anna Turley earlier, and she said that, we know that there are a number of people who enter the UK using this route, and it's something that maybe needs to be looked at. But obviously it's very sensitive because free movement on the island of Ireland has been, something that is very, very long-standing and valued.
Fundamental to the Good Friday Agreement and just fundamental to the UK's integrity as a whole. And when you did press her on that, Sophie, she admitted she didn't know how many people were kind of exploiting this loophole. And I imagine there's some frustration in Northern Ireland as well, because we've heard some of their politicians saying, we know that this has been going on for a considerable amount of time. And obviously it's coming into the spotlight because of an awful case like this, but maybe they feel that they've been unheard until now. So I think, Anna Turley did say there were going to be ongoing conversations with the Home Secretary about this. So I think we can expect that to be a big talking point going forward as well.
Alex, Christoph, thanks so much. Now, the US has launched a fresh wave of strikes against Iran after Donald Trump accused the country of shooting down a US helicopter over the Strait of Hormuz.
So in response, the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, said it had launched strikes on 2 US bases in the region, in Bahrain and in Jordan.
Our Middle East correspondent Anne Parsons joins us live from Jerusalem. Adam, a lot of the focus of this week has been trying to calm tensions between Iran and Israel, and clearly pressure from the US president on Israel to cease its excursions into Lebanon. This clearly more directly a very significant clash between the US and Iran.
Yeah, and I think this region continues to be volatile on that front. By the way, Israel has issued evacuation orders for 3 villages in southern Lebanon, so there is absolutely no sign at all that Israel is following the demand from Iran to keep out of any attacks in that area. But in terms of what has happened overnight between the United States and Iran, it feels like we're in the world of attacks that both sides feel they have to do, but aren't necessarily going full-throated. Now, what kicked this off was an American Apache helicopter that was flying over the Strait of Hormuz and was knocked out of the sky. Now, the details on that are still not completely clear, but it's obvious that the American military thinks that it was hit by an Iranian attack drone. It went down in the waters near Oman. The 2 crew members were rescued by sea drone ships. Taken back, they are both fine. But Donald Trump then announced that he had to respond, that he said that he had responded to attacks throughout his life. And sure enough, the United States did launch attacks into Iranian territory targeting air defense infrastructure. The Iranians, you might have thought at that point would say, OK, well, we hit their helicopter, they've hit our air defense. But no, the Iranians felt that that was a provocation to which they, in turn, had to respond and launched what looks like 21 ballistic missiles. Certainly 5 of them fired towards an American airbase in Jordan. They all seem to have been intercepted, and then others into Bahrain. And also Kuwait said that it had activated its air defences. So far, we don't have any reports of any significant damage or certainly any casualties. In fact, what's noticeable about all of these missile exchanges this week is that there are no reports so far of any serious injuries or certainly serious casualties being caused by them. So it feels a little bit like both sides are picking targets for this performative element. Once again, though, we are back in a position. Will America respond to this again? Maybe not. It may well be that the Americans and the Iranians deep down both want to do a deal. Both felt they had to respond and can now get back to negotiating. Iran's economy is on its knees. And I imagine that Donald Trump on the eve of the World Cup would like to have something that he can hold on to, at least for a while, and say, well, it was all worth it. The greater volatility is going to be in the north of Israel, in southern Lebanon. And once again, if Israel attacks there, that could be the catalyst for an escalation.
Adam, as always, thanks so much.
Now, the World Cup kicks off tomorrow. We probably don't need to tell you. And US officials have given more details about why a very senior referee from Africa was denied entry to America ahead of the tournament.
Omar Artan was detained and questioned for 11 hours after landing in Miami. Our US correspondent James Matthews caught up with the head of the White House's World Cup task force to ask why.
Andrew, can I ask, why did the referee Omar Artan, why was he refused entry to the United States?
Look, there are a few things we can't talk about, but what I can tell you is that anybody who's communicating with bad actors that plan harm against the United States of America are not going to be admitted entrants, and we're not going to allow a soccer tournament, no matter how big it is, to threaten Americans. What we are proud of is we're proud of the work that's been done from a visa perspective, the fact that all players, all coaches up to this point have gotten in the country. We've worked extremely hard with consular affairs, with CBP and USCIS to make that happen.
Was he in contact with bad actors, and who were these bad actors?
Again, there are some things that I can't talk about. What I can tell you is we're going to make sure that this is a safe and secure tournament, not just for American citizens and permanent residents, but all the people who legally are traveling here to the United States.
Given the people having trouble accessing this tournament and their skin colour...
How so?
Is this shaping up as a racist World Cup?
First off, explain your question, because I think the premise is false.
Swiss striker Briel Mbolo, Cameroon-born, he had trouble getting into the country. Iraqi striker Ayman Hussein was detained for 7 hours.
Are in the country?
They're in the country.
They're in the country, exactly.
They were detained.
Don't you think the most important thing about a tournament is making sure that those fans that come to the United States, all those Americans that are going to enjoy this tournament, that they actually are safe and secure? That's what I ultimately think is important. We're going to continue to focus on that.
Was a Somalian referee not allowed into the country because Donald Trump
on this one here, sir,
has a problem with Somalia?
There are also concerns that the opening game could actually be disrupted by big protests taking place in Mexico City.
Thousands of teachers blocked a road leading to the Azteca Stadium to demand more pay and better working conditions. Here's our sports correspondent, Rob Harris.
This should be the heart of the main World Cup fan zone here in Mexico City. Instead, barricades blocking the way to Zocalo Square. There is still a screen there, but how much of a party mood will there be when protest has taken over the capital? And this is why, all the way down here, for 600 metres, teachers have been in tents for more than a week, and they're planning to stay here, angry at their pay and pensions.
The President, Claudia Sheinbaum Pardo, has a promise with us. And this promise is broken.
This primary school teacher tells me he wants to use the World Cup to show the world things are not right in Mexico.
We are here, we are fighting.
The teachers told me they feel exhausted and exploited, while feeling the World Cup is just for the business classes and unaffordable for them. The teachers just want to be heard. They're using this World Cup to get their voice across, to hope the President Claudia Sheinbaum listens. So, if fans are coming here expecting to arrive at the Fan Fest, instead, they'll be confronted by hundreds of tents of protesting teachers.
Rob Harris there for us. On more positive topics we build up to the World Cup, we'll be joined by Harry Redknapp at 9:30 this morning. Very much looking forward to that. First question, can we win it? And lots more as well to come to with Harry at 9:30. Right, time now to speak to Mehdi Hassan, the broadcaster and journalist who joins us live in studio. As you can see, you may well know him, of course, as the founder of Zeteo, which is launched as of this week in the UK.
Yes, it has.
But
soft launch yesterday, thank you.
Much with all new media, it's had a global reach already. Tell us why you're launching Zeteo UK specifically.
Specifically, we've done very well. We launched Zeteo after I left MSNBC in the United States in 2024. We've been around for a couple of years. I think, immodestly, I will say, we've had a pretty big impact in the US, made a lot of noise, won awards, built up a big following, 2 million followers on YouTube, 700,000 on Substack. So we were looking around thinking, where do we go next? Not that America doesn't keep us busy with the news, as you know, but where can we expand to? And we already had our second biggest audience in the UK. I'm obviously biased to the UK, born and raised here, became a journalist here until I left in 2015. So it seemed like the obvious place to expand in the English-speaking world. And I don't think you need me to tell you, Wilf, that there's no shortage of news in this country right now. A few months ago, I was watching the Gorton and Denton by-election, the kind of crazy reaction to that, the rise of the Green Party and the kind of pylons there, obviously the coverage of the war in Iran. And I thought to myself, there's a gap in this market. There are underserved communities, groups, voters, readers, viewers who aren't happy with the British media. Just like, you know, people are dissatisfied with British politics, people are dissatisfied with the British media. And so I'm not someone who says burn it all down. I'm not one of these people who's anti-mainstream media. I'm sitting with you here today. I used to work here at Sky News many years ago when I had fewer grey hairs. But I do think there's a gap in the market and we can complement what mainstream media is doing in the independent space.
That's interesting framing, that there's a gap and you want to complement mainstream media. Because if you look at the sort of opening paragraph on your website, I think it's more bluntly critical of MSM.
Oh, I'm very critical of the mainstream media, yes. That's why there's a gap. It's what you're not doing well that we want to do better.
What are we not doing well?
I think, for example, when it comes to the rise of the far right and fascism and authoritarianism across the Western world that we're seeing right now, we've seen quote-unquote liberal media do a very softball approach, play both sides journalism on issues that are not really both sides, like racism. I think the genocide in Gaza was very particularly badly handled by multiple media organizations. And right now, the war in Iran. I think you look at the coverage of the war in Iran, there hasn't been as critical as coverage as I would like to see. And again, this isn't a criticism of individual journalists. You know, we're here at Sky, where I think Alex Crawford has done a fantastic job in covering the Middle East. She's a good friend of mine. But I think overall, institutionally, if you look at outlets' coverage, that coverage has not been as, what's the word I'm looking for, as blunt about what is going on as some readers and viewers would like to see. I think we're an organisation that's not going to hide behind euphemisms or both sides coverage.
I think, look, there's lots of individual points of what you made there, but I guess the bigger point is this broad MSM negative kind of connotation, accusation. Do you not think you then make the job harder of people like Alex Crawford since you singled him?
No, actually, I think there's a lot of mainstream journalists, former colleagues of mine, people here in this UK media who think we are healthy competition, who think we're actually raising this bar, raising the standard. We're also about media accountability. A lot of what we do in the US also is critiquing what some of the bigger media organizations are doing. And I think you've seen that now in a world of social media in general. As you know, I'm sure you're online. There's a new pressure, there's a new directness with viewers. When you get things wrong, it's quicker to correct things. In the old days, you'd type in a letter and send a letter to an editor. And now you get kind of instant feedback. And I think in that space, we're helping. And the number of journalists, both here in the UK since yesterday and in the US since we launched in 2024, who've reached out to me and said, thank God you guys are around. Thank God you're keeping us honest. I could fill an entire book with those names.
Finally, on this topic, you're kind of critical of people trying to do both sides media?
Depends what the topic is. Climate change is on both sides topic, for example. No, I think there's people, we talk, you and I and journalists in general, we say we're all about finding the truth. Right? That is what we're supposed to be about. That's what our viewers want. But then we hit certain topics and we see the truth and we say, well, we can't say the truth because it might upset this or that faction, this or that person in power. We have this kind of fake definition of impartiality, which says we must always say X says something, Y says something, even if Y is lying. And I think we get to a point where we need to call out lies. I think we've seen that in, for example, in the coverage of Gaza. We've seen that in the rise of Trump. In the United States, the media has had to really struggle with a president who lies every day, lies in every breath. Everyone knows it, everyone can see it. But, oh, you can't say lie about a politician. You must immediately, you know, balance what they've just said. And I think people are fed up of that. And we're seeing that with a number of people deserting mainstream media. In the US, more people now say they get news from independent media than national news networks.
It's a really interesting nuance, which, you know, I'm just thinking in light of what our top story is today, in light of the biggest story in this country the last 10 days in Henry Novak, there are also details where we can't, because we want justice to be served, say certain things that are said elsewhere. And that does put mainstream media in a very difficult situation.
I agree with that. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying everyone is doing a bad job. It is difficult. And look, I'm critical of the BBC, for example. But the BBC gets a lot of attack from the right too, doesn't it? They get attacked for being liberal. So I get that the people, you know, big broadcasters like yourself get attacked from all sides. But I also look at kind of objective data, and we look at, you know, certain things like on, for example, Israel, Palestine or Iran. You can look at the numbers. You can look and say, how many guests from one side versus another side? How is the language used about Ukraine versus Gaza? You know this. Multiple media studies have been done about bias and double standards. And I think, yes, there are certain things you can't say as a broadcaster. I get that. But if you take the Henry Nowak story, for example, a horrific story, what happened to him shouldn't have happened. And I hope there's investigation. I hope there's accountability, especially the police side of things. But, for example, allowing the right to turn that into an immigration story when the guy who killed him was born in the UK. His father was born in the UK. But you're now seeing...
That's fair, though. Which mainstream media organisation has allowed that to be the case? Everyone's pushed back and focused on the facts really, really quite carefully.
No, I think it has very much become a debate about immigration. I was just on Newsnight last night. We were talking about the horrific tragedy in Belfast, and that story comes up. I think it's a real problem where when one side is just lying about what is going on. So, for example, do you use the word lie?
Yeah.
You do? You say to guests you're lying?
Well, no, because it doesn't happen very often, but we absolutely hold...
It doesn't happen very often?
Yeah.
Guests don't come on Sky and lie very often?
No, but look, I'm sorry...
I think viewers would disagree.
Look, I think it's, again, this is it comes back to the point, tarring everyone with the same brush, and, you know, we...
No, I'm not. I've specifically said in this interview I'm not tarring everyone
on this
with the same
issue,
brush.
you know, go back and watch... Sophie did the interview with Zia Youssef the following morning. You know, you can't possibly argue that we don't hold people to account when they say misleading things, they have double standards, criticise a Telegraph headline, but then not accept criticism of your own party's website. So I think it's not fair, and it's a little opportunistic when, you know, you admit yourself you have a side in an argument and a take which many people would disagree with. Because, as you say, none of us are perfectly impartial. It's impossible.
No.
So I think...
But I think sometimes we shouldn't pretend that impartiality means that you must take a middle position between two sides. Take the genocide, for example. This idea, and you know this, and again, we don't have time to get into all the stats, but the number of times that Sky and the BBC and other broadcasters have given Israel a pass, or, for example, taken an Israeli denial as fact when we know it's not fact, when we know they're lying, when it's been illustrated that they've been lying. And I think that's a real problem. For example, the humanising of one side of the conflict. I think it's undeniable that the British media humanises Israeli victims of violence more than Palestinian victims of violence.
Look, again, I push back on that, I think.
Well, there's a study being done by News Corps of media bias. People can look at it, about Sky and the BBC. There's been a study done by Des Friedman at Goldsmiths College about headlines on Ukraine versus Gaza and Iran. The numbers are all out there, Wilf.
Well, and they're different conflicts with different needs to coverage, and I don't know those reports, but there are other reports on the other side, and I think really in an unbelievably difficult topic, which we talk about sometimes with preparation, sometimes without. I think all of my colleagues and peers in this organisation and at the rival ones that you mentioned, I think do a very, very good job under the guidance of trying to be balanced and partial in rules that I hope remain, even if you celebrate being free from them. We're kind of out of time. I have lots of other topics I wanted to get to. One final topic. Do you think these latest polls, when we see President Trump's polling, his personal popularity, which is not always what manifests when it comes to the party he represents, do rightfully point to a tough midterms, or do you think the Republicans might surprise again like they did in 2024?
If you look at the polls, he's very unpopular. He's more unpopular now, according to some polls, than the day after January the 6th, which was his previous low point. He's the most unpopular president at this point in a second term. And normally midterms do reflect a backlash against the party in power. I think the difference this year is, A, in general, American politics is crazy. It's very hard to kind of apply normal rules. So, yes, anything is possible. I don't do predictions anymore since Brexit and Trump term 1. But there is a real issue where, for example, gerrymandering is going on. People in the UK don't quite understand what happens in the US. Here in the UK, in Canada and France, you have independent bodies draw up the seats. In the US, politicians get to draw up their own seats. So you have Republican legislatures across the country, and some Democratic ones now, just completely redrawing boundaries so that they get all the seats. So you could see a scenario where, in an insane scenario, the Republicans lose a popular vote but keep control of Congress because of gerrymandering. And then they're saying they're going to put ICE agents at the polling stations. This is not a guy who accepts defeat very well, as you know. So let's see what happens in November. I'm very worried about the state of American democracy if they do pull off some kind of miraculous saving of the legislature, because there needs to be some accountability.
If they do, though, of course, we'll focus on the votes, as we should, and not really anything else. Mehdi, it's been great to catch up. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much.
Good to see you. Coming up, is this a break? America's new war. Yeah, we're going to be talking about satellites being launched into space and the impact it is having overall on how we communicate. We'll be right back.
I urge you not to look away. If Hamas hands the hostages over, they will end this conflict. The world has been watching. Good to see you again. How are you? Did she say how he was?
The conditions are awful.
The jets were ordered to come back. Historic day here today. How will you respond if India does launch airstrikes?
They'll be all out to war.
I'm just going to put some body armor on. I'm Yalda Hakim.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist... My darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
Is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more. Well, let's kick off and make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs? He's coming out! What more do you need?
Now, look, modern warfare is becoming less about what's on the kind of ground. You can think about the kind of tank battles of the past, but what's in the sky. So a web of satellites...
They are all over the place.
I've invented a new word. That was deliberate, obviously.
Yeah, I like it.
A web of satellites combined with AI are becoming the digital nervous system to an effective war machine. And they really are changing an awful lot of things. We've got a special report on this coming up next.
From our Roland Manthorpe.
You are looking at the machine that is being built to watch the world.
And a big part of it is owned and controlled by Elon Musk. Yeah! These are satellites, and almost 7 years ago, none of them existed. Now they surround the Earth, listening, communicating, watching, shaping life down below. And that is only the beginning.
The Department of Defense and the intelligence community envisioned a world of 24/7 coverage in all weather to be able to watch targets without blinking. This notion of constant stare.
You know, when I started this story, I thought I was just going to be looking at a load of computers because I thought I was investigating AI. But you see, AI is just one small part of what is going on here. To see the rest, you have to look up.
But let me tell you about the data before we go back to the clean room. This chart shows the enormous change that has taken place in the last few years.
This is the number of satellites launched into space each year since the start of the space race in the late 1950s.
For most of that period, launches were so expensive and satellites were so large that they were only launched rarely and one at a time. Then in 2017, something changed. Or rather, someone. This guy, this company, and these reusable rockets. Once SpaceX made rockets reusable, it became much cheaper to put satellites into low Earth orbit. And that changed what satellites could do. Before, the best you could get was occasional snapshots. Now, you can start to build something closer to live video of Earth.
So we're on our way.
David Zikusoka worked on space intelligence at the Pentagon.
The DoD has ambitions to launch about 1,000 satellites between now-ish and the year 2035. The National Reconnaissance Office is planning to quadruple the size of its fleet of satellites and in general plans to ingest about 10 times more information than before.
Do you know the National Reconnaissance Office? No? Well, they might know about you. They're the US government agency which handles space intelligence, kind of like the CIA or the NSA, but for space.
We see from the perspective of stars.
And they're launching spy satellites at an unprecedented rate.
Well, you know, over the last not quite 2 years, we put 200 satellites on orbit.
They also have multi-billion-dollar, 10-year contracts with private companies like Planet Labs, whose satellite constellation can image Earth's entire land surface daily at 3 meters per pixel, and arrangements with companies that make radar satellites that can see through cloud and at night, and other satellites for different kinds of surveillance, intercepting phone calls, internet activity, radio, tracking movement from GPS. It's continuous planetary monitoring, or as the NRO puts it, see it, hear it, sense it. To get a sense of just how much Elon Musk dominates space, take a look at the chart I showed you earlier, broken down by who fires these objects into space. These are the world's countries, and this is SpaceX. Almost everything that goes into space goes because Elon Musk sent it. It doesn't matter who you are. If you want to get there, you've got to go through him.
The U.S. military, the U.S. national security apparatus is highly dependent on Musk and his rockets. It's a significant impact on world affairs.
As well as sending up other people's satellites, SpaceX also send up their own. All these satellites are from Starlink, the biggest satellite constellation in space. More than half of all satellites in space belong to Elon Musk. At any time, if you look up, he's right up there. Not looking down, because these satellites don't watch. They provide connectivity, internet. They are the nerves of this planetary machine, getting data to and from previously inaccessible places, passengers on planes, remote Amazonian tribes, and above all, battlefields. If you want to see how important these satellites are in war, just ask the Ukrainians and the Russians. When Musk cut off Starlink communications to the Russians earlier this year, multiple reports say that drone ops failed. Communications went down. They still had the equipment, and they knew what they wanted to do, but the connection between the two of them had been broken. The nerves had been pinched shut. That kind of thing shouldn't happen to the US. They have Starshield, a special line of military satellites built on SpaceX technology. And they're working on their own distributed space internet. It's called the Proliferated Warfighter Space Architecture. But for the rest of the world, Musk's power it's immense. All the data from space would be overwhelming if you didn't have a way to go through it. But now, the US military does. AI. This is the brain of the planetary machine. And the core of that brain
is Maven Smart System, Palantir's software as a service product that we are deploying across the entire department.
This is the Department of War's Chief Digital and Artificial Intelligence Officer, who earlier this year gave a talk which actually revealed what this famous system looks like. It's hardly been discussed, but to me, this is revelatory. You can see satellite imagery is combined with other imagery, because this is from a plane, you see. That's the plane. And other data is added on top and combined into a single visualization tool, which you can inspect and then, most importantly, action. Look at this. They're dialing up and down the things they want AI to prioritize to work out how to target something. Then Maven automatically recommends this nearby Striker vehicle armed with a .50 caliber machine gun, showing exactly how long it will take to engage. See that? Time to target, 4 minutes, 23 seconds. And then in the same system, you can tell that vehicle to go. One-click strike approval.
This is revolutionary. When we started this, it literally took hours to do what you just saw there. And through a number of different deployments, we've been able to reduce that time significantly.
The UK has a contract with Palantir too, and it's working on its own version of Maven Smart System called
a digital kill web or digital targeting web. And essentially what it does is it collects together every single form of sensor, whether that's a satellite, an aircraft, a ship, open source data, a mobile phone. It doesn't matter, but it networks all the things that you can use to see the world, and the world is now effectively transparent.
But, you know, it's been held up with funding delays.
For all sorts of reasons, the money is often tied up in other things.
And in the meantime, the US is already taking the next leap forward by adding generative AI on top of what Palantir do. The way to think about it is that Palantir is kind of like memory and reasoning in this brain, and Claude or ChatGPT add language and perception. And you know with this stuff, people always get hung up on autonomous killer robots. And yeah, I do think they're coming. But that's not really the point here. What they're trying to do is speed up the entire system, speed up what they call the kill chain, which is the chain that goes from seeing something to acting on it. The chain that goes from eyes to brain to nerve to muscle. That used to be hours, and now it's minutes. And they've only just begun.
Roland Manthorpe there, absolutely fascinating. And of course, satellites very much in focus, and AI with the SpaceX IPO on Friday, which will be the biggest IPO of all time. So more to come on Sky News about that topic in the days ahead.
Now we want to return to what's been happening in Belfast, that kind of horrific stabbing, sustained attack where we saw the victim receiving slashes to his neck, to his head. And then, of course, the violence that has erupted there. And our correspondent, Conor Gillies, has just spoken with a man left devastated after his house was set on fire last night.
Literally stood right over there and watched the whole house go up.
How are you feeling about that?
I've lost a home, man. 13 years out here, and that's gone. The house is wrecked, man. The whole house is completely destroyed. From top to bottom, it's literally all gone.
And did you see footage of, I mean, you were standing across the road watching it happen?
I seen the car was here even before it went up. It was a real car, and I seen him lighting it. I told him, this is my house, this is my house. I knew it was going to catch fire. And
so they were setting fire to the car, but then clearly then...
And then that one there, and then it was a red one. It caught fire the whole house. It was all the sparks and all flying. It was actually the door went up first, and then I knew straight away that was it gone.
Was there anyone in the property at all?
No, the property was completely empty, no. That's what I says, I was standing there watching it. And literally told them before they lit the fire, I says, this is my house here. I'm sure they didn't care anyway, did they?
What's your message to the people who have wrecked your property? And
They've done it one of their own. One of their own. I understand they're all angry and all that, but I've just lost a home, so...
Just devastating. Look, we can talk now to Brian Kingston, member of the Legislative Assembly for Northern Ireland, Democratic Unionist Party member for North Belfast. I don't know if you just heard the words of that man there, who is just, I mean, he's in shock after seeing his house go up in flames. What's your message?
Yeah, but it was a disgraceful night of violence in Belfast last night, and Sky News did give very comprehensive coverage to it and showed the scale of it. This is heartbreaking and depressing for all who love the city, as I do. I want to condemn the violence and thuggery which occurred last night. It is completely wrong and unacceptable, and there's no place in Northern Ireland. I mean, of course, people were shocked and outraged by the knife attack which occurred in my constituency of North Belfast on Monday night, and our thoughts remain with the victim of that attack. But now, this morning, we have many more victims of violence, cars burned, homes burned, businesses burned, people in fear and terror put out of their homes as that man has been. There were anonymous calls for protests yesterday in outrage at the knife attack. But when that is done, especially anonymously, there's a great risk that things will get out of hand. And some people followed up those protests with carrying out acts of violence. And it showed a level of planning, which was depressing. And it was targeted, at the homes, properties and businesses of foreign nationals living in parts of Belfast. So I say that is totally unacceptable. Of course, there are issues around crime and about immigration policy, but the response to crime is not to create more crime and more victims. I hope people will reflect this morning on the damage that they have done within their own community. Within my area of North Belfast this morning, I was out viewing one street where 6 homes were attacked, another street with 3 homes were attacked, and cars burned out in those streets. It is just depressing, and it does not help address the issue. Yes, there are issues that we need to be dealing with, but this cannot be the response. I appeal for calm, for this madness to end.
Comment for us, if you will, on the police response and what you'd like to see in the days ahead, today, this morning, to try and aid delivering that calm.
Yeah, well, I and other elected representatives are meeting with the North Belfast area commander of the PSNI this morning. We will be getting an update from him. That was originally focused on the knife attack which occurred on Monday night, and now it will also be taking in this night of widespread violence. So obviously the police need to keep their presence up on the ground, and we need community and elected representatives to be clear in the message that violence is wrong. This is not a solution. This is only making things worse. And we have many foreign nationals living and working in Northern Ireland, making an important contribution. And it's clear that this violence was quite indiscriminate, and reports of people just saying foreigners out. I mean, that is just disgraceful. That is shameful behaviour. Many of those people are working in our health service, in our businesses, in a wide range of institutions. And we just need calm and people to reflect on the damage that they're doing to the fabric of society. We need to have community cohesion and not. There are extreme elements. There's no question about it. There are extreme elements who are trying to whip up tensions and want to exploit incidents such as occurred on Monday night. And the majority of people who would be against what has occurred need to be wise to that, not to get sucked into their agenda. They want to spread violence. They want to see it in other parts of the United Kingdom. People need to look at these scenes this morning, look at the destruction in these streets. And this destruction has ended up indiscriminate, affecting families from all different backgrounds. Would you want that in your own street? Would you want that in your own area? Sometimes people will travel to another area to behave badly, but would you want that for your area, for your family, for your neighbours? So people need to be wise to the negative agenda that some people are pushing, that want to see breakdown in community cohesion, want to see violence on our streets. That is no solution. That is only part of the problem. So I appeal for calm and for wiser heads.
Can I ask you about the wider debate on immigration that this has sparked? Emma Little-Pengelly, Deputy First Minister, said that we've been aware for some considerable time there are people travelling from the Republic to Northern Ireland to claim asylum. We do not know their background. We do not know the routes that they come through. We don't know if they have convictions. Is this a concern?
Well, immigration is a concern throughout the United Kingdom and Ireland and indeed across Europe. So it is a live issue and nobody should duck that issue or say that people who raise concerns shouldn't be raising concerns. I mean, it is a live issue, and if there's not a public debate, then people feel their concerns are being suppressed. So we will always listen to concerns about this. And there is particular concern. What happened in North Belfast, who was this man who was an asylum seeker who carried out a violent attack. I mean, that plays into the worst fears of what people have of undocumented males coming into the city, bypassing all the normal strict rules about immigration where people just claim asylum and are given leave to remain and very little information known about them. It has since emerged this man who was originally from Sudan, had taken a flight from Paris to Dublin in the Republic of Ireland, then got a bus up to Belfast in 2023 and claimed asylum there. So he had travelled through several safe countries until he claimed asylum in Belfast. So there are concerns about the open border that we have on the island of Ireland between the EU and the UK and the lack of checks, but also the lack of information about people. So there are serious questions for statutory agencies about what monitoring is taking place, what information is known. And now that this man has committed such a serious crime, on conviction, there must be no place for him.
Just to come in very quickly, because there's obviously an active court case that is a suspect at this stage, so there's been no conviction, just to make that very clear.
Yes, well, I think for those who've seen the footage, it's quite clear what occurred. But
we do need to be very careful to not jeopardise.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah. Well, let's say then, if he is convicted, then people in his circumstances who come to the UK claiming they're a victim, that they are under threat, and then if he is proven guilty to have carried out this heinous crime, then he should be deported from the UK. And people want to see it, and there needs to be greater urgency with this. So there are issues around immigration policy that need constant attention, and people understandably have concerns. But the response cannot be to have violence in our street and the creation of more victims.
Brian Kingston, thanks for joining us. We do appreciate it. We're going to take a quick break now, and we'll be continuing our coverage on this afterwards.
I bet right now you often find yourself asking why. Why was a certain decision taken? Why did something happen? Why did they say or do that? I'm Neil Patterson, and it's my job as a journalist to find out why. Just explain why.
It's a difficult one.
Well, I mean, it's massive.
It's a very, very severe situation.
So if you want to make sense of this complicated world, Sky News' new podcast, This Is Why, is your daily fix. One story every day, and we can find out why together. Listen and follow wherever you get your podcasts.
A lifeline for millions of people living on both sides of one of the most volatile international borders. It's dams like these that have become inflection points between the two nuclear-armed neighbors, which could potentially lead to water wars in the future. A terror attack has shattered the peace and tranquility of Kashmir. At least 26 people have been killed and as many injured when militants fired upon them. I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi.
The old and young, all weary after being trapped for days as the worst floods have hit Kerala in a century.
3 days we are on a rooftop. They have no food, nothing.
The roads have been inundated. The only way out is to get people by boat. There have been reported deaths and many injuries, several critical.
Many families will grapple with the unimaginable loss of one of the worst disasters in India's aviation history.
The spiraling violence between two nuclear-armed neighbors that harbor decades of hostility just seems to be getting worse by the day.
Garbage dumps like this not only threaten the lives of millions of people, but also pose a deadly consequence on the environment and climate.
It is a source of death, decay, disease and pollution for hundreds of thousands of people living in its shadows.
There is so much disease because of this garbage. Sometimes it's so difficult to just breathe.
Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Over the next 45 days, an estimated 400 million Hindu pilgrims are expected to converge here in Prayagraj on the banks of the holy river Ganga and Yamuna. It's a real kaleidoscope of people from all walks of life.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
We're in an area that's just been reclaimed.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
People are directly protesting.
The whole neighborhood is rallied around her.
It's been impenetrable to journalists over the last 2 years of war in Sudan.
I've been waiting for this for 2 years. It doesn't feel like a big homecoming.
It was never going to be pretty. War isn't pretty.
Welcome back. A few final stories to wrap up this particular hour. Have you seen this? So the Reform leader, Nigel Farage, and the Bank of England Governor Andrew Bailey have roundly condemned bizarre AI videos showing them each fighting each other.
Yeah, so if you've been on X
Fake
recently, you'll have seen these, right? It's a punch-up between Farage and Bailey. And look, it's linked to scanners. They've been called exploitative and an online scourge by both of them. But I think it just really shows, some of the risk here. So these are AI-generated images. There are others that we can see. So this is we're not showing them on TV. This is the real Farage, by the way. But it's a big problem, right? I mean, I get them all the time from, like, Robert Peston, for example, images of Martin Lewis. And I think the idea is to try and get you to click through and then go to a website to buy a product or whatever. But both Nigel Farage and Andrew Bailey have come out to condemn it. Yeah, and it's a particularly kind of... it definitely cut through this one more than others. Yeah. And, there's an AI-generated video of them both storming off a TV set and having a punch-up. So it is quite compelling. Not that I wish to see that in real life, but do you know what I mean? And it definitely draws your attention. But they both very loudly condemned it. And somewhat amazingly, we're only waiting for this to become the platform's responsibility to police. And Nigel Farage has said that he's raised it with the highest level at X. Who knows what that is? Andrew Bailey's put out a statement saying that the scams are designed to criminally exploit the public, especially the vulnerable. I would urge everyone to stay vigilant and report these scams. Also want to mention the tennis legend. That sort of undersells it. The Queen, the GOAT, Serena Williams, has turned back the clock, notching up her first win in nearly 4 years. She's taking part in the doubles at Queen's Club and hasn't played, as we said, for 4 years, but won. Oh, she's I love it. Much higher seeds in the doubles. Yeah, the third seeded duo. And she's 44 years old, a couple of years younger than me. I cannot imagine playing at this level against all those kind of young 25-year-olds. I mean, the GOAT, like you say, forget Ronaldo and Messi. You're looking at her right here. Yeah, she's so impressive. I hope she continues and obviously goes all the way and then picks up a racket at Wimbledon as well. Yeah. Now, We want to give you a little weather update to end the hour. It's been a heavy day, I have to say, for all sorts of reasons. But if you missed the last heat wave, don't panic. There's another one coming this weekend. If you like the sun, I know that some of you will be kind of very upset at the news that the Met Office says temperatures could hit 30 degrees at the weekend.
So it's coming back, the heat wave, after a blitz of rain earlier in the week. We're getting the full swing over the last few weeks. We're out of time this hour of the programme. We'll be back with all the day's top stories after this.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter? Perfect. Let's bring you some breaking news. Being a Sky News presenter. I began by asking...
Thank you so much.
...trusting us to tell her story. The battle for number 10. Sky News has been given exclusive access. Let me give you a sneak peek. It was the day those present would never forget. Why did you decide to open up and tell your story?
Good morning, it's 9 o'clock. Welcome to Mornings with Ridge and Frost.
Sophie and Wilf, good morning from both of us. A lot of news ahead.
Chaos in Belfast with houses and cars set on fire, residents forced to flee after protests sparked by Monday's knife attack.
As more details emerge, praise for this man who rushed towards the scene to stop the attack.
The US and Iran exchanged strikes after an American Apache helicopter was downed over the Strait of Hormuz.
And as World Cup fever builds, we're going to be asking Harry Redknapp for all his predictions.
And we try and find out why Africa's top referee was denied entry to the US by asking White House's World Cup official.
Hello, thanks for being with us this morning. Well, it was a night of serious unrest in Belfast after major protests broke out in the wake of a stabbing on Monday night.
Let's go straight to some of the pictures from last night. Here's a group of men who can be seen throwing bins that they've set on fire at a bus.
And look, you can just see the chaos breaking out there. We're going to talk to our correspondent, Conor Gillies, who was on the ground. But this is a video he filmed showing officers just rushing to try and stop the fires and the violence that were breaking out in pockets of the city.
For residents, the unrest turned into immediate danger as a number of houses were set on fire. You can see firefighters working to quickly evacuate nearby residents as flames spread.
And this all stemmed after a knife attack. I mean, that understates it in some ways. A sustained attack on an individual who received these slashes to his neck, to his back. He's recovering in hospital, we hope. A 30-year-old Sudanese man has been charged with attempted murder and will appear in court later today. The victim, a man in his 40s, remains in hospital.
Let's bring in Conor once again, who's in Belfast and has been joining us throughout the morning to sum up the aftermath, which is quite self-evident behind you once again, Conor. Bring us the latest.
Yeah, well, we are in the epicentre of what was the disorder here in Belfast last night. And look at it, it resembles something from a war zone, like a scene from a movie here where masked individuals took to the streets and attacked vehicles, attacked everything in sight, it seems. And this is the aftermath, the morning after the night before. Look down here, the human toll of this beginning to become clear today. Scooters, properties absolutely destroyed, windows put in. And if we come down here, I've been chatting in the last few minutes to the resident, the occupier of this particular property, and we have to watch because there are shards of glass that could come down and hit us at any moment. But in here, you can see what was a sofa, what was a living room, a TV that has literally melted off the side of the wall. And Jamie, the resident of that property, has revealed to Sky News that he had no insurance as part of that and will now be having a conversation with the local housing association about attempting to get rehoused. But he has lost everything, as have very many residents. I mean, look at this car, for example. That is all that is left. And what has become clear here this morning is that the protesters, the attackers here on this street, weren't specifically targeting the houses, we understand, but they were setting fire to these vehicles, which then clearly engulfed the neighbouring properties. We had a conversation with the owner of that property an hour or so ago, and she was telling us that she's from Belfast. She's absolutely horrified by this. Clearly, she didn't want to have a conversation. And then in there, not quite as destroyed, but inside there just now, a Ukrainian family who fled war and are now having to endure this as well, leaving with their suitcases today. Clearly, the clean-up operation is well and truly underway. But it wasn't just here in this street where the violence, where the disorder spilled over. Just on the adjoining street to here, a massive bus was set on fire, sending a plume of smoke into the air. And this man here is a resident and witnessed this himself. First of all, thanks for speaking to Sky News.
Thank you so much.
What happened last night and what did you see and hear?
Actually, last night, it was a very bad moment of my life. Again, saying whatever happened. I was in my house with my children, and the smoke came in. And then we were obliged to switch off, to close the window to prevent the smoke going in. And then my kid started to ask me, Daddy, where is smoke coming from?
And that was smoke from the bus?
The smoke from the bus, which was burnt yesterday.
And did you know at that stage it was from the bus, or was there confusion amid that moment as well?
I knew the tension which was in the city. I didn't know that already the bus took fire. I didn't know how to tell the children. My children have 2 boys and 1 girl in the house. They saw the smoke coming in. I couldn't know what to tell them.
And, you know, this is your street here, or nearby your street. It's like something, as I say, from a war zone. I mean, how are you feeling about this? This must be really emotional for you?
It's horrific. It's terrifying being on the street at this time. And it's like a war zone, as you can see. But there's no justice where we live. And unfortunately, you see, myself, I'm sorry for whatever happened. I sympathize with the family and I pray for the recovery for the victim, but we don't support violence. And my call is to see if we can be together, live together, and support each other instead of fighting against each other.
Listen, thank you so much. Take care of your family, and we really appreciate your time here on Sky News this morning. Just a sense as to the situation here. Now, just as we've been speaking, just finally, officers from the council have arrived here, entering these properties, clearly trying to survey the scene. And if we just come down here, we can also see the clean-up operation is very much underway as these efforts continue in what will no doubt take very many days.
Conor, thank you so much. I mean, look, Conor just bringing us the devastation of that street, and also, I guess, that raw shock as well of the residents, that the innocent people just caught up in that sudden upswell of violence.
We have a little bit of pictures, actually, we can bring you from last night, and you're seeing firefighters, gosh, really having to help evacuate people. You know, we're talking about burning homes here. Children being moved out by the police. People really just unbelievably caught up in this. This is Lendrix Street in Belfast. Pictures taken late last night, just highlighting the scale of what was happening.
I'm just looking at those flames extraordinary. Of course, we've seen the aftermath this morning with those coverage that we've had from Conor. But just to reiterate, as Wilf was saying, children pulled from their homes and put into the back of that ambulance. Children caught up in this.
This is, in fact, Lendrix Street, the street we just saw Conor on, just to connect all of the dots. It's footage taken late yesterday evening. And then we just saw the aftermath with Conor moments earlier. We're going to talk. We've got the live pictures again for you where we saw Conor, of course. This is it this morning. So the before, well, the during and the after, not the before, obviously, sadly. Let's now go to Dan Whitehead. He's outside Belfast Magistrates Court and can bring us an update of what we're expecting in court today and the very latest. Dan, on the moving parts there, of course, relating to that brutal stabbing on Monday night.
Yeah, I mean, amid the tensions, the ongoing tensions here in Belfast, the legal system moves forward as indeed it should. We are expecting the 30-year-old Sudanese man who's been charged with attempted murder to appear here at Belfast Magistrates behind me later this morning. Hearing some reports that he may be appearing via video link. Wouldn't be surprising, given that they would not want scenes outside court. At the moment, it's calm here. There's no signs of any protest. That 30-year-old man, as I say, charged with attempted murder of that victim who's recovering in hospital still in a serious condition. Also charged with possession of an article with a blade or point in a public place and threats to kill. Despite no gathering protests outside court here, we are getting intelligence sharing on social media of businesses being told to close from 1 o'clock this afternoon and the same sort of roads that we were at last night and that Conor's been at this morning, closing yet again, potentially for more demonstrations. That is, of course, exactly what the politicians here in Northern Ireland and across the UK and the police here do not want to see. What we do not want is a second night of violence. And some statistics just to briefly bring you that we got after last night and those fires at the homes. Northern Ireland Fire and Rescue Service managed 256 calls, 62 different fire incidents across the city. It was pockets of violence spread right across the city rather than concentrated in one place. The legal process begins in earnest here this afternoon. It'll be a brief hearing and, as I say, we are hearing he may appear via video link rather than arriving in a police van.
Dan, thank you very much indeed.
Let's get more reaction to the events of this week in Belfast. So we're able to bring in now Northern Ireland's Justice Minister, Naomi Long. Naomi, thanks so much for joining us. Can we start with Monday night and your reaction to the brutal violence that we saw?
Well, I think like everyone else who woke up yesterday to the videos that were circulating on social media and who witnessed what was a barbaric and sustained attack on a gentleman who is now probably going to face life-altering injuries, and I wish him a good recovery, and I think of his family because this must be incredibly traumatic. And I was horrified. I was horrified and I was frightened. And I think many people across Northern Ireland, and seeing those scenes, were really shaken by what they witnessed. Truly appalling violence, completely unacceptable. And if it had not been for the courage and the bravery of those local residents who intervened, we could be discussing the death of an individual because it was clearly the intent of the person who was involved. They bravely and without consideration of their own safety intervened to stop the attack, and thankfully the police were on the scene quickly and were able to make arrests, and as we know now the justice system is in train and hopefully that will be robustly dealt with. So a very, very difficult time for people, and I understand entirely that people were shocked and frightened and even angry at what they saw on the streets. However, none of that can justify what took place in Belfast and Portadown and other places last night. We had innocent people being driven from their homes, their properties destroyed, their cars hijacked and set on fire, public transport destroyed, a bus hijacked with a passenger and driver on it. Imagine how terrifying that experience must have been, to then be set alight. How does that help the gentleman who was so viciously attacked? How does that bring any justice to the situation when you have completely innocent people being targeted in this way? It makes no sense and it's completely unjustified. I understand people being angry, I understand them being upset, but destroying any sense of community, destroying your neighbours' properties, leaving people in terror, children last night with nowhere to sleep. How can that make it better? Surely what we need to do at this time is to find that shared sense of humanity that we saw at play on Monday night when others ran to the aid of someone in trouble. Find that shared sense of compassion and humanity and pull together to get through this, not pull apart and not destroy our community.
You speak very powerfully about the community and people pulling together and how important that is. I wondered if I could ask you about the politics, if I may, because it feels to me like there is an emerging debate about immigration and, in particular, the use of the common travel area, which, of course, allows this free movement on the island of Ireland. There has been some politicians here in Westminster and also, of course, in Northern Ireland as well, who've said that this is a route where people are entering the United Kingdom, that they are travelling to the Republic first and entering the United Kingdom by then going on to Belfast. Is that something you're concerned about?
Well, it's something I'm aware of, and it's something that Border Force and the Home Office are also aware of. And as Justice Minister, I don't have responsibility for immigration. It's a reserved matter in Westminster. But I do communicate with the Home Office. I do communicate with my counterpart in Dublin in the Justice Ministry there. And I have raised the issue about bad faith actors, people who exploit the benefits of the common travel area for criminal purposes, whether that is immigration crime or whether it is people who are using it, for example, for other kinds of trafficking. And it is of concern. But let's be clear, this is not a one-way flow. We know that in the past, people were going from the UK to the Republic of Ireland, and that's something that they have been dealing with as well. What we need to do, again, in these challenging times, is not to finger point at each other, but to pull together in these islands in order to keep all of our communities safe and to make sure that irrespective of the colour of your skin, irrespective of whether you were born here or chose to come here to live, that you are safe in your home, that you're safe on our streets. And that's what we need to be focused on. I understand there is a debate to be had about immigration. I would argue that is not a debate that you can have while people who live here, people who have lived here, some for more than 20 years, were put out of their homes last night for no reason other than the colour of their skin. That's racism. That's not a debate about immigration. If we want to have a debate about immigration, let's have it in the cool, calm and collected environment that it requires. What angers me is that there are bad faith actors, I have to say, in UK politics and far beyond it, who via social media and other means were inflaming tensions and were using this tragedy that happened in North Belfast, weaponising the genuine fear and pain of people here in Northern Ireland, people who I doubt could have found Belfast on a map the day before, who were suddenly all over this story because it suits a narrative that they want to create, which divides people by the colour of their skin, divides people into locals and others. I don't want that narrative of division for Northern Ireland. I want us to build strong, safe communities, and those communities are going to be inclusive and safe for everyone. That has to be the goal. And I would appeal to those who were on the streets last night not to get involved in further disorder and in further conflict within their own communities. And I would call on those who have been whipping up with their rhetoric all of this tension to desist. Let the politicians of Northern Ireland lead in this community. We know what it is to live with division. We know the damage it can cause. So please do not trample over the hard work that is being done here to build sustainable, united and stable communities. We still have a huge amount of work to do, but we do not need people who have no interest in the long-term interests of our community, no genuine attachment to this place, intervening because it suits a particular political narrative.
Naomi Long, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
When Naomi Long there talked about an individual who ran towards danger and, in her words, possibly saved a life in doing so, and that is a man called Matt McKinnon. We can have a look at him now, the hero, if you like, of Belfast. He was in a car, he was travelling with his friend Andre, who happens to be trained in jiu-jitsu, when he saw what happened, the knife attack, the stabbing, the injuries, to the awful attack to that poor man, and he ran towards the attack, as you can see there in that image, with a hurling stick, which he used to beat off the alleged attacker.
Yeah, and as you said, very brave, very on the spot, showing courage, but also ingenuity. And as Naomi Long said there, you know, we might be talking about a worse situation if not for that. And he should be commended at every level.
He said, people have called us heroes, but to be honest, I'd like to think most people would have got stuck in and helped if they could. That was his words.
More on the situation in Northern Ireland, in Belfast, to come later in the programme. Now, the US has launched a fresh wave of strikes against Iran after Donald Trump accused the country of shooting down a US helicopter over the Strait of Hormuz.
So in response, the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, said it had launched strikes on 2 US bases in the region, in Bahrain and in Jordan.
Our Middle East correspondent Adam Parsons has the latest for us.
In terms of what has happened overnight between the United States and Iran, it feels like we're in the world of attacks that both sides feel they have to do, but aren't necessarily going full-throated. Now, what kicked this off was an American Apache helicopter that was flying over the Strait of Hormuz and was knocked out of the sky. Now, the details on that are still not completely clear, but it's obvious that the American military thinks that it was hit by an Iranian attack drone. It went down in the waters near Oman. The 2 crew members were rescued by by sea drone ships. Taken back, they are both fine. But Donald Trump then announced that he had to respond, that he said that he had responded to attacks throughout his life. And sure enough, the United States did launch attacks into Iranian territory targeting air defence infrastructure. The Iranians, you might have thought at that point would say, OK, well, we hit their helicopter, they've hit our air defence. But no, the Iranians felt that that was a provocation to which they in turn had to respond and launched what looks like 21 ballistic missiles. Certainly 5 of them fired towards an airbase, an American airbase in Jordan. They all seem to have been intercepted, and then others into Bahrain. And also Kuwait said that it had activated its air defences. So far, we don't have any reports of any significant damage or certainly any casualties. In fact, what's noticeable about all of these missile exchanges this week is that there are no reports so far of any serious injuries or certainly serious casualties being caused by them. So it feels a little bit like both sides are picking targets for this performative element. Once again, though, we are back in a position, will America respond to this again? Maybe not. It may well be that the Americans and the Iranians deep down both want to do a deal. Both felt they had to respond and can now get back to negotiating. Iran's economy is on its knees. And I imagine that Donald Trump on the eve of the World Cup would like to have something that he can hold on to, at least for a while, and say, well, it was all worth it. The greater volatility is going to be in the north of Israel, in southern Lebanon. And once again, if Israel attacks there, that could be the catalyst for an escalation.
Adam Parsons with the latest there from Jerusalem.
The World Cup kicks off tomorrow. Me and Wilf are aware, I think it's fair to say. US officials have given more details about why a top referee was denied entry to America ahead of the tournament.
Omar Artan was detained and questioned for 11 hours after landing in Miami. Here's James Matthews, who caught up with the White House's World Cup Task Force head.
Andrew, can I ask, why did the referee Omar Artan, why was he refused entry to the United States?
Look, there are a few things we can't talk about, but what I can tell you is that anybody who's communicating with bad actors that plan harm against the United States of America are not going to be admitted entrants, and we're not going to allow a soccer tournament, no matter how big it is, to threaten Americans. What we are proud of is we're proud of the work that's been done from a visa perspective, the fact that all players, all coaches up to this point have gotten in the country. We've worked extremely hard with consular affairs, with CBP and USCIS to make that happen.
Was he in contact with bad actors, and who were these bad actors?
Again, there are some things that I can't talk about. What I can tell you is we're going to make sure that this is a safe and secure tournament, not just for American citizens and permanent residents, but all the people who legally are traveling here to the United States.
Given the people having trouble accessing this tournament and their skin colour...
How so?
Is this shaping up as a racist World Cup?
First off, explain your question, because I think the premise is false.
Swiss striker Briel Mbolo, Cameroon-born, he had trouble getting into the country. Iraqi striker Ayman Hussein was detained for 7 hours.
Are in the country?
They're in the country.
They're in the country, exactly.
They were detained.
Don't you think the most important thing about a tournament is making sure that those fans that come to the United States, all those Americans that are going to enjoy this tournament, that they actually are safe and secure? That's what I ultimately think is important. We're going to continue to focus on that.
Was a Somalian referee not allowed into the country because Donald Trump
on this one here, sir.
has a problem with Somalia?
James Matthews there asking the questions, and as we've been teasing all show, we'll be talking about the World Cup, all of the excitement to come on the World Cup later in the programme with Harry Redknapp at about 5:30, about 5 or 10 minutes.
Oh, well, let's return to what's been happening in Belfast overnight. Fires in houses, cars. We've seen footage this morning of children being pulled from their homes, which are in flames. And our correspondent Conor Gillies has been on the ground all morning. He's spoken with a man left devastated after his house was set on fire last night.
Literally stood right over there and watched the whole house go up.
How are you feeling about that?
Oh, I've lost a home, man. 13 years out here, and that's gone. The house is wrecked, mate. The whole house is completely destroyed. From top to bottom, it's literally all gone.
And did you see footage of, I mean, you were standing across the road watching it happen?
Yeah, I seen the car was here even before it went up. It was a real car, and I seen him lighting it. I told him, this is my house, this is my house. I knew it was going to catch fire. And
so they were setting fire to the car, but then
car
clearly
here,
then...
And then that one there, And then it was a red one. It caught fire the whole house. It was all the sparks and all flying. It was actually the door went up first. And then I knew straight away that was it gone.
Was there anyone in the property at all?
No, the property was completely empty, no. That's just it. I was standing there watching it. And literally told them before they lit the fire, I says, this is my house here. I'm sure they didn't care anyway, did they?
What's your message to the people who have wrecked your property? And
They've done it one of their own. One of their own. I understand they're all angry and all that, but I've just lost a home, so...
I mean, look, it's devastating. You can see the guy's shock just looking at his home like that. We can talk now to the Shadow Northern Ireland Secretary Alex Burkett, who's here. What's your reaction to the scenes that we've seen in Belfast?
It's incredibly depressing. And I think what we've seen over the past 48 hours in Belfast is very, very depressing. Yeah, local man in North Belfast brutally attacked, and then last night just awful acts of violence. And I think I completely understand why people are angry and why people are frustrated, and people have a perfectly legitimate right to protest, but there's no justification for burning people out of their homes or setting fire to police cars or, destroying public property. There's never any justification for that.
Look, you're right to highlight the initial act of extraordinary violence, and I think it is worth pointing out, as we have been this morning, that part of the reason that we're not going into it in more detail is because there was a charge, and the most important thing is for justice to take place for that initial appalling act that we saw. But, I mean, it goes beyond protest to set houses on fire, where families are inside, right?
No, it's horrible. I mean, these are horrible acts of aggression, and they're criminal acts, and, they too need to be punished, right? And I know that the police force in Northern Ireland, it's a very good police force, works incredibly hard. It's been doing an amazing job over the past 48 hours. It's on the scene the night before last, very fast. And I know that they will be doing everything they can to try and keep people safe.
Do you have any information, you may not, which is fair enough, on whether these were targeted attacks on individuals?
And I don't, but the evidence that I've seen so far suggests that this was very well organised, it was very well coordinated, and groups that use modern communication technology can obviously coordinate very, very fast and get to specific locations very, very quickly. And that makes it hard for the law enforcement agencies to respond. Something I do just want to say, Sophie, is that there's one thing that I think is sort of shone out from the past couple of days, and that was the bravery, first of the police officers, but also of local people who ran to the victims' rescue, when he clearly put themselves in enormous danger, including one local man, I think Mr. McKiernan was his name, who ran up with his son's hurl and went after the attacker and probably saved the man's life. And I very much hope that Mr. McKiernan's bravery is recognised at some point.
Yeah, when you say recognised, what would you like to see?
Oh, well, there are various sort of awards that can made to be members of the public who show acts of bravery like that. But I think he deserves to be recognised for what he's done. Yeah,
to be honest, it was an amazing act of bravery. He said that he hopes that anyone would do it if they could, but I have to say I'm not sure that everyone has the same level of bravery as we saw from that particular man. I am keen to talk a bit about politics now,
yeah, of course,
if we may, because immigration, I think, is going to be looked at as a result of this. The suspect flew from Paris to Dublin, and then he crossed, from Dublin to Belfast, right, because of the common travel area that allows free movement on the island of Ireland. Are you worried about bad faith actors, illegal immigrants, or even legitimate asylum seekers using this route to get into the UK?
Yes, certainly. And it's a highly complex area. The border between Northern Ireland and the Republic is very, very long. I visit it quite regularly. It goes through large areas of open countryside. It was very difficult for the authorities to patrol and police during the Troubles. It's very difficult to do so now. The common travel area has served both the UK and the Republic very well over about 100 years. Got a lot of people who live on the border, a lot of people who commute either way, a lot of business that depends on that. But it's clear that some more things need to be done. The Irish government, for the past couple of years, has been running something called Operation Sonnet, where it uses intelligence to perform spot checks to first go after people who may be crossing illegally from the north into the south, but also to act as a deterrent. We don't have anything like that in the north, and I think we're going to have to look into something like that. We need to get something in place because people in Northern Ireland have a right to know that the authorities are doing everything they can to prevent illegal immigration.
Do we have any sense about how many people we're talking about here? Because we talk an awful lot about small boats. Do we know? Or?
No, it's much harder to see.
So we've got no idea, really, to be honest.
And people in Northern Ireland will tell you that they have become aware of a problem over the course of the past few years. But also, we need, as Kemi Badenoch has spelt out, we need much harder deterrence, with our own country. Say, if you come here illegally, you will be very, very swiftly deported. There are legitimate ways of coming into this country. If you don't follow them, then you cannot expect to stay here.
The problem is, I guess my question is, how can anyone take you seriously on this when you look at your own record from the Conservatives? And look, we're talking about this individual here, right? He was granted leave to remain by you guys, right?
I understand that, but we have a new leader, we have a new team of people in charge of the Conservative Party.
But you can understand why you're saying, like, if you come here illegally, this will happen. This suspect, who, happily turned up in Belfast, was given...
Well, it was one of the
Conservatives,
first,
wasn't it?
As you know, so it was one of the first things that Kemi did when she became leader. Said, we didn't get everything right, and we have a new team in charge now, and
she was in government, though, wasn't she? It wasn't like she just turned up in Parliament 5 minutes ago.
She was in a different part of government.
She was
And obviously, when you become leader, you get to show what you would actually like to do, and that's what she's done. And she has made a point saying we will present very detailed plans, not just about what we want to do, but how we will do it. And say people who come to this country illegally should not be able to stay here under us. They wouldn't be able to.
OK, thank you very much indeed, Alex Burkhardt, speaking to us there. It's been an awful lot of very difficult news, I think it's fair to say, this morning. A pretty depressing scene to be waking up to this morning. We're going to try and have a bit of a lighter section coming up next. We're going to talk about the World Cup with former manager and player Harry Redknapp.
welcome back. Well, the World Cup kicks off tomorrow. Scotland's first game is on Sunday. England's first game is a week today. And we are delighted to talk about it all with Harry Redknapp. Harry, I've been so looking forward to this conversation. Even more so, I have to say, in the short term, because there's some tough news out there, and it's a joy to see you. Welcome to the programme.
Good. Great to be here. Thank you.
Harry, I'm going to go straight in on both our home nations. Gauge for us how far you think each of England and Scotland could go.
Well, England, really, I mean, we have to go all the way to make it. We've been so close to the last 3 or 4 tournaments. And it's time that we actually won a tournament. 1966 is a long time since we actually, last got hold of some silverware. So this has got to be the tournament that we've got a good group of players. To be honest, I think we have had better groups and better squads in recent World Cups and European Cups, and not managed to win the whole thing. But this time, maybe Tuchel's put a team together that he feels has got good spirit. They're very much together and a good balance to it. So, yeah, I'm very, very hopeful. There's not one team in it that I look at this time and think, well, they're a certainty. There's not a Brazil 1970 or German teams that we've had, or even Italian teams in the past. This is a very open World Cup, and I think England have got as good a chance as anybody, for sure.
Can I just pick you up? Because you say that you thought we had better squads, or England had better squads in other World Cups. Is that because we've got some key players who are, I guess, a bit out of form or getting a bit older? Or is that because you think the manager hasn't actually picked the right players?
No, I think that we have had better players in the past. I think when you go back and you look, that's how far you want to go back. But the Wayne Rooney's, the Gerrards, the Lampards, John Terry, Ferdinands, that golden generations that we had year after year. And we always, went into every World Cup with high expectations, but didn't deliver. Maybe this one, we haven't got such high expectations, and we will deliver. So a bit like Ocado, really, they'll deliver this time,
Oh, we saw what you did there. We saw you. Harry's here, partly I'm talking about Ocado, but that was a very, very smooth interjection.
Other delivery.
Well done.
That was immaculate. I wanted to ask a little bit about the costs, Harry, which is getting a lot of coverage. But I think linked to that's also got a bit of coverage, is whether there are too many teams, or do we just gloriously look at it and say it's more football for us to watch and we can really enjoy it, or should it be a bit more elite, the World Cup? 48 teams.
Well, yeah, I suppose, listen, if you're to get the smaller countries in for the first time, it's a great experience for them. They'll be taking thousands of fans over, and it's a great experience. And the game is a worldwide game. So okay, from an actual point, football point of view, maybe there is too many, but I think to have smaller countries involved is fantastic for them. If you're in wherever you may be, South Africa or somewhere where you don't normally qualify, some of the other countries that have qualified for the first time, it's a great experience. Their fans will love it, and it will come down to the elite at the end. By the time we get to the last 8, we'll be down to 8 of the best teams as usual. It'll be the usual team. So it's a great experience for them. So good luck.
Yeah, more games better. Although I have been moaning quite a lot to Wilf about how much it's costing me to fill in my Panini World Cup sticker book as a result of all the teams. There's so many players this time.
And it's late, isn't it? I mean, the games are going to be on. It's going to be a late watch. We're going to be up very early. Sort of our sleeping pattern's going to be very different during this World Cup, I suppose.
Yeah, it's true. What can I ask you? But there's been a bit of moaning about the ticket prices as well. Is that something that you feel strongly about, that you think they should come down?
Yeah, I do really. People travelling all that way, and people want to go and maybe take their kids or whatever, go to the World Cup. Yeah, it's a shame that they've pushed the prices up so high. I'm sure that something could have been done about that, but that's how the game is. Unfortunately, the people at the top, whatever we're in, always trying to make more money out of everything. So. I think it's a bit unfair, really, but what can you do? I won't be going. I'm going to sit at home, watch it on the TV and enjoy it. And, I've been so many World Cups, and you struggle to get to games. You watch one game and then there's another game kicking off. You know, but whereas at home you can sit and watch every game, can't you? It'll be non-stop for me. My wife will hate every minute of it. She'll hate it, but I mean, most wives probably. But I'm going to be loving it. It'll be football, wall to football, 24 hours a day almost.
Harry, I wanted to ask, you know, the fact that, you know, you haven't managed England, and that is a matter that a lot of people think is wrong, and you had many moments where you could have been picked and it didn't happen. I wondered whether, as these tournaments approach, whether that you're reminded that in a sense of regret and unfairness, and linked to that, if I may, whether you think and hope that your nephew Frank Lampard has done a great job again at Coventry, whether he should get the job one day.
Yeah, well, listen, I didn't. I've been lucky. I had a great time in football, managed some fantastic clubs. So, you know, I never sort of look back and hold, you know, grudges or regrets. It didn't happen. So there's been better people than me that didn't get the job. I mean, Brian Clough certainly would be one that comes to mind. So, yeah, I just get on with it. And but I do think that Frank would be ideal to be an England manager in the future for sure. He's got to be, you know, he's got all the right credentials, hasn't he? Incredible player, 100-odd caps for his country as a player. You know, doing a great job at Coventry. Just got the Manager of the Year award this year by the LMA. So certainly, when it comes and you know the time comes for a change again, it certainly, in my opinion, would be right at the top of the list.
Can I just ask? Does it matter that Thomas Tuchel's not English?
I would rather have had I'd be a lie if I say it and said I'd rather have an English manager for sure. I think we have the coaching system in this country. We have the players do all their badges. It's a long, drawn out process now. So many of them managing in the lower divisions, but very rarely get a chance to manage at the top level. How many British managers in the Premier League now? I'm not sure. Probably. If I said, you know, if I sat down and thought about it, I could come up with the right answer. But it's probably off the top of my head, probably 3 or 4. You know, Frank's back in this year, so that's another English manager in the Premier. But there's very few get the opportunity. But I would rather, given that, you know, in all honesty, I'd rather see an Englishman manage England for sure.
Harry, it's been a real pleasure having you on the show. We really appreciate it.
Good. Nice talking to you. And let's hope we can go all the way this year. It would be lovely.
Absolutely. Fingers crossed. Harry Redknapp, absolute legend there joining us. Great conversation.
Can I tell you something depressing?
What?
3 Lions song, 30 Years of Hurt. Guess how old that song is now?
Oh, God, so what, it's now?
30 years.
60 years of hurt.
60 years of hurt. That's what we're talking about.
That is a classic tune, isn't it?
Just to cheer you up.
The original is the best. Actually, no, I like the 1998 version more than the 1996 version. And then they did some later versions that weren't so good because the commentary in the 1998 version cut back to the 96 heartache. You thought you couldn't do it.
Let's cheer us up a little bit by the fact that the weather is going to get sunnier.
I hope we haven't forgotten anything.
Travel insurance, I tick that box.
Yeah, but remember what you forgot last year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
So the weather is a bit cool and unsettled for the rest of the week, but the weekend is looking much more settled, and in Northern Weather Talk that means sunny, and it means that temperatures are going up into the mid-20s Celsius. Before that we have showers and some longer spells of rain though. This morning there's going to be a mixture of sunny spells and showers. Winds will be lighter than yesterday, so the showers will be slow moving, delivering some downpours in places.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
We'll be speaking to the leader of the Social Democratic and Labour Party in Northern Ireland, Claire Hanna, about last night's disorder and about the shocking stabbing and attack on Monday evening. That is next.
I bet right now you often find yourself asking why. Why was a certain decision taken? Why did something happen? Why did they say or do that? I'm Neil Patterson, and it's my job as a journalist to find out why. Just explain why.
It's a difficult one.
Well, I mean, it's massive.
It's a very, very severe situation.
So if you want to make sense of this complicated world, Sky News' new podcast, This Is Why, is your daily fix. One story every day, and we can find out why together. Listen and follow wherever you get your podcasts.
A lifeline for millions of people living on both sides of one of the most volatile international borders.
It's dams like these that have become inflection points between the two nuclear-armed neighbours, which could potentially lead to water wars in the future. A terror attack has shattered the peace and tranquility of Kashmir. At least 26 people have been killed and as many injured when militants fired upon them. I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi.
The old and young, all weary after being trapped for days as the worst floods have hit Kerala in a century.
3 days we are on a rooftop. They have no food, nothing.
The roads have been inundated. The only way out is to get people by boat. There have been reported deaths and many injuries, several critical.
Many families will grapple with the unimaginable loss of one of the worst disasters in India's aviation history.
The spiraling violence between two nuclear-armed neighbours that harbour decades of hostility just seems to be getting worse by the day.
Garbage dumps like this not only threaten the lives of millions of people, but also pose a deadly consequence on the environment and climate.
It is a source of death, decay, disease and pollution for hundreds of thousands of people living in its shadows.
There is so much disease because of this garbage. Sometimes it's so difficult to just breathe.
Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Over the next 45 days, an estimated 400 million Hindu pilgrims are expected to converge here in Prayagraj on the banks of the holy river Ganga and Yamuna. It's a real kaleidoscope of people from all walks of life.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter? Perfect. Let's bring you some breaking news. Being a Sky News presenter. I began by asking,
Thank you so much.
trusting us to tell her story. The battle for number 10. Sky News has been given exclusive access. Let me give you a sneak peek. It was the day those present would never forget. Why did you decide to open up and tell your story?
Well, we're reporting this morning on the horrific footage that we've seen of a stabbing attack in Belfast, but also, of course, the riots, frankly, that have broken out overnight in the city as well. These images sum it up. So this is early evening in Lendrick Street, fires breaking out, and if you look at those blurred faces there, these are children being pulled out of a burning building and being put into an ambulance as the very violent protests break out in Belfast after the knife attack.
And of course, we saw the aftermath of it when we were talking to Connor earlier in the programme. Let's discuss it all and the brutal incident on Monday evening that triggered some of this reaction. The leader of the Social Democratic and Labour Party in Northern Ireland, Claire Hanna, joins us. Claire, very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
What's your reaction when you see pictures like that?
Well, I'm horrified, and I know obviously everybody who saw the video yesterday morning of the violent incident in North Belfast, of course they feel shock and fear and in many cases anger, but that's absolutely not the fault of those blameless families all over Belfast who have been put out of their homes on the basis of the colour of their skin and almost nothing else. And we saw across the city effectively a festival of racist violence and people using that trigger and that, of course, that genuine anger and fear, but taking it out on completely innocent people. So we did have a whole circus online whipped up by people who have no interest or no care for the people of Northern Ireland or the people of Belfast, winding it up, and they'll walk away today and they'll move on, and Belfast will be left with damage to public services, damages to goods, and obviously this awful stain of young families being put out of their homes.
You say there about that the attacks were targeted on race. Do we know that?
Well, we do. We literally have video footage that I think was broadcast on channels has said, you know, get the ethnics out or get the foreigners out. We saw obviously going into areas where houses of multiple occupation are common and where they know that there will be people of other backgrounds. I know my own colleagues in South Belfast in my office were supporting families late into the evening who were targeted. The apartment building where the people who work here, who are here, are in Northern Ireland entirely. Legally, who are contributing to society and to the economy, who have no bed to sleep in tonight. So yes, we do know it was on the basis of the colour of their skin. Exactly a year ago, the same thing happened in Ballymena. Northern Ireland's no stranger to violence, even while the violence we saw in that video was visceral. It's because it was videoed. We've had violence before, but unfortunately, we do also have a ready bed of people who are completely unwilling or unable to accept difference of any type.
Can you express for me the legitimate sense of anger that a lot of people might have felt in reaction to what happened on Monday evening?
Of course, it was an unspeakably violent act on the public road. And as I say, everybody, I watched it myself and of course, and felt those things, so I can understand. But that's not, I mean, as I say, unfortunately, Northern Ireland, we had brutal violence in our past. We also have shocking femicide rates. Last week, in a very high-profile case, the murder of Natalie McNally, the judge gave the ruling and he talked about a frenzied knife attack. He talked about wounds so bad the cause of death was unable to be determined. There were no riots over the perpetrator of that brutal crime. So whatever concerns people, whatever real feelings, and I don't try to invalidate them, that people have watching that video, whatever opinions people have about immigration as well, we are dealing with a race problem here. This is about racism, what we saw last night. And I think those two things do need to be separated. And those politicians who like to touch paper and walk away, as they've done for decades in Northern Ireland, who talk about the legitimate concerns, that's fine. Bring forward proposals, bring forward solutions. Don't just make videos about it when there's a flashpoint and then say nothing to do with me, Gov, when this happens, because it happens all the time. It keeps happening. We know it's going to happen. So don't hype it up if you're not prepared to stand over the consequences.
By the way, I'm happy you raised femicide, because it is an issue, obviously, that is an issue across the whole of the UK, but I have been following the cases in Northern Ireland as well, and it's something that I think we should focus on at another point. It's a huge issue, and I agree with you that not enough coverage is given to it. Is there an issue with, I guess, immigration policy? Because some people will be looking at the suspect in this, right? Mm-hmm. And they will look at how he apparently entered the UK illegally and also, of course, you know, taking advantage of the common travel error as well. Are these legitimate concerns about immigration that need to be addressed by politicians?
My understanding is that he did have legal immigration status. Look, there are always going to be, I mean, we talk about I'm an MP in Westminster, there's many debates and in media and in wider policy around immigration, the trade-offs, the benefits that it brings to our economy. But yes, the dislocation and the change.
Just to say, I accept that he had indefinite, he had leave to remain for 5 years, but I think the way he got into Dublin initially,
of course, and it has to be said, there are those parties who the solutions always seem to be dilute rights and put a border on Ireland. Whatever the problem is, there are politicians who will always arrive at that solution. Of course, there can be better data sharing between, of course, and enforcing some of the protocols that I think were made more difficult. Some of that sharing around Brexit. But yes, people can of course have views on that. I don't know about here, but if you go into nearly any hospital or many schools, the people staffing it are people who have come from other countries. We do have an economic need for migration in Northern Ireland.
That's not a work visa. I mean, that's a bit different, isn't it, from someone getting on a flight
I don't think those boys
Paris.
kicking in doors were asking about the immigration status of people. I don't think they were asking about what contribution they're making to society. They were targeting them. And I know you're not spending it, but they were. No, I know you're not. But what I'm saying is, of course, we will always, like any area of policy, it needs to be discussed, reviewed. You need to have public buy-in as well. But we also need to deal in facts, and the fact that what we're dealing with last night is a racism problem, because it wasn't on the basis. I mean, there are people who have lived in Northern Ireland their whole life but have a different colour of skin to any of us here are being targeted by these people, are getting the same slurs at the bus stop this morning. We are dealing with a racism problem and a failure to address. So of course we can talk about, and there will always be, and in terms of that issue of the movement of people north and south, and at various times I think it flows in different direction, and we can have always better information sharing. But when we're having that conversation, we need to have it in its totality, and we need to talk about the need for immigration, and we need to talk about emigration from Northern Ireland, which is people leaving because of the suffocating, hateful politics that they hear every day and that they see spilling out in violent ways.
We are out of time. Claire, Hannah, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Good to see you. As we wrap up the final minutes of the programme, we can bring you, again, just some live pictures of the... these are the latest ones, actually, last night, just to remind you about what we've been talking about there, and the police and the firefighters having to pull people from their homes, including children.
It's appalling scenes on the streets there of Belfast, and very, very difficult images to wake up to. Thank you for being with us. It's been a pretty full-on morning of news. It will continue. We'll see you tomorrow.
I urge you not to look away. If Hamas hands the hostages over, they will end this conflict. The world has been watching. Good to see you again. How are you? Did she say how he was?
The conditions are awful.
The jets were ordered to come back. Historic day here today. How will you respond if India does launch airstrikes?
They'll be all out to war.
I'm just going to put some body armour on. I'm Yalda Hakim.